Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. It was busy today. Sadly, it felt busy every day. This showed how tough times were for many people. I took my tray and looked for a table far from any doors or crowds. I preferred being alone these days and did my best to keep it that way. Luckily, the old card table in the back corner had only 2 chairs, and both were empty. I quietly pulled one of the chairs back and set my tray on the paper tablecloth. After I sat down, I took off my gloves and reached for a hand wipe. After cleaning my hands well, I pulled my hood a little tighter over my head and started to eat. I was never picky, and when you rely on a soup kitchen, that's helpful. I no longer ate for fun, but to stay strong. I checked my baggy pocket for the extra chocolate milk and protein bar the kind lady at the end of the line had given me. She always smiled and said nice things. I knew I wasn't the only one she helped, but I was thankful. Even though I was hungry, I made myself eat slowly. I wanted to really taste everything. They usually gave you 30 minutes to eat and use the restroom before leaving. In winter, they let you stay an extra 15 minutes to warm up before going out. Being late September, the days were still nice, but the nights could get chilly. "Andrew?" I heard someone say my name from behind me. I paused for a moment, but chose not to respond. Unfortunately, it came again. "Andrew? Is that you?" I could tell a man was coming closer. This was one reason I tried to avoid the soup kitchen. I didn't want to run into people I knew, and I preferred to keep my distance. Realizing he wouldn't leave me alone, I turned to see who it was. "Father Murphy." I went back to eating. "By the grace of God, it is you." Father Murphy was the priest at the church my family used to go to, though I hadn't been there in 4 years. "May I join you?" He pointed to the empty chair. "Still a free country, Father." I hoped he'd take the hint and move on, but today was not my lucky day. He carefully sat down. The priest seemed to be in his late 70s or early 80s now. After gathering his thoughts, he spoke again. "I haven't seen you since." He hesitated. "I haven't seen you in church in a while, son." I stopped eating and frowned at him over my tray. "Forgive me, Father, but I thought it best not to." He looked at me with understanding. I'd always liked Father Murphy. He was old-fashioned but still had a good sense of humor and understood today's problems. He had shared many meals at our home. "Meredith and the girls are still active in the church. Your girls are growing into lovely young women, Andrew." I dropped my spoon into my bowl, the noise surprising him. "Father Murphy, please don't mention them. That part of my life is over. When you tell me how beautiful they are, it's hard for me." I struggled to contain my feelings. "I'm trying to move on, Father." I stood up, my hunger forgotten. Before I could push the chair away, he held my forearm gently. "I don't want to cause you pain, my son." He stood up with me and looked at my worn clothes. "Could you give me one more minute, Andrew? Please come with me." "I don't want any surprises, Father. I've had enough." "I promise I won't trick you, Andrew. Please, come with me." He motioned for me to follow him, and after thinking for a moment, I nodded and walked with him. I picked up my roll from my tray and followed the old priest through the busy tables until we reached the area for volunteers. He guided me to a spot where he had hung his coat. He bent down and picked up a pair of sturdy boots, offering them to me. "I remember we have the same shoe size, Andrew. I want you to take these. They are meant for tougher tasks than an old man going to church." I shook my head. "No, thank you, Father. I don't need your charity." He stepped closer to me. "Pride can lead to trouble." Proverbs 16:18. I quietly replied. "Come back to the church, Andrew. Whether it's my church or another, God's word is for everyone. I believe you have the light of Christ within you. Don't let it dim." I looked at the old priest thoughtfully. "Tell me, Father, do you really think I could do those things? Do you think I'm capable?" I could see he was struggling to find the right words. "It's not my job to judge, Andrew. I didn't ask for judgment. I wanted to know if you think I'm capable. Everyone has weaknesses, Andrew. Sometimes those weaknesses take over." That was a clever response, I thought. I reached for the boots and accepted them. Do not worry, Father. I know where my soul will go in the end. Judge not, that ye be not judged, for with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. I paused. Maybe you should share a sermon on that verse, Father. It could resonate with some in your congregation. I started to walk towards the door when Father Murphy reminded me of another verse. If you forgive others for their mistakes, your heavenly Father will forgive you too. I turned back one last time. Was that for me or Meredith? I know my heart is fine. I'm not afraid of judgment because God knows my truth. Not wanting to continue discussing scripture, I stepped outside and walked down the alley behind the soup kitchen. I stopped at the dumpster to get rid of the old dress shoes I had found a month ago, putting on the comfortable hiking boots instead. Instantly, I felt good in them and smiled for the first time in ages. It wasn't the life I planned, but considering what I was going through, I was okay with living this way for the time I had left. I believed that God had a purpose for all his children, and I trusted in that. 5 years earlier. I'm sorry, Meredith. What did you just say? My wife of 15 years stood at the foot of our bed, nervously fidgeting with her hands. She looked beautiful, made even better by time and being a mother. She was everything to me, and I had spent many years proving that to her. We lived comfortably, free from the financial worries many couples face. I was a shift manager at a busy factory that was well regarded in the tech and hardware fields. Until 9 months ago, Meredith had been a stay-at-home mom, but with our daughters becoming more independent, she started part-time work as a legal assistant. Jenny, who was 11, and Gina, 9, brought me so much joy and made me prouder each day. They were close to their mother, and it warmed my heart to see them sharing moments together. I noticed Meredith fidgeting again. Meredith? My heart raced. It would just be a casual arrangement, Andrew. Maybe once a week or so. She couldn't look me in the eye. Was that really how she felt? I had just come home from dropping the girls off at their grandparents' and heard Meredith in the shower. Part of me wanted to join her, but I knew we would likely be late for dinner if I did. I hoped that a night out would help us reconnect. Life had become busy since she started her new job. Trying to keep my thoughts in check, I went to my side of the closet to pick out some clothes when I heard her phone beep. That noise bothered me, but Meredith said it helped her keep up with messages. The phone was face up on the bed, and I saw the screen clearly. Blake. Did you tell him yet? Blake? Her boss? She usually called him Mr. Edwards. This felt too close to home. I trusted Meredith deeply and had never felt the need to snoop, but something about the message grabbed my attention. We didn't lock our phones because we believed in being honest with each other. It was common for Meredith to borrow my phone to contact her family. I opened her messages and saw the conversation at the top. Blake. You know I'm not talking long-term, Meredith. Just a casual arrangement now and then. It could add some excitement to your life. Meredith. You make it sound easy. Blake. It is. Just think about how you can make the most of your time together. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to understand what I had just read. Did she want to be involved with him? Did she seriously think I would be okay with this? I was lost in my thoughts and didn't notice her come out of the bathroom. She cleared her throat to get my attention and said, Earth to David. She laughed. What are you reading? I turned the phone toward her. Just about what looks like your arrangement with your boss. Her face went pale as she grabbed the phone from me. You can't believe this. He doesn't care about either of us. He just wants to use you. It's wrong. Her reaction left me confused. You're smart, Meredith. How can you not see this? She looked serious. Then a thought struck me. You want this, don't you? I swallowed hard. She fidgeted, her cheeks turning red. Understand, Andrew, I love you so much and this won't change anything between us. You're always my priority. I stood up, feeling frustrated. No, that's it. I almost walked away, but paused. No, you need to quit your job. No partner of mine will put themselves in that situation. She flinched at my tone. I had never raised my voice at her before. Andrew, please, let's talk about this. It's not that big a deal. I shook my head and left the bedroom. As I reached the top of the stairs, she rushed up behind me and held my arm. Andrew, please, I love you. I turned to her. Really? Nothing shows love like wanting to risk our relationship? She hugged me tightly, tears running down her cheeks. Thankfully, the kids were at my in-laws, so they didn't see all of this. "It's not like that," she cried. I gently held her wrists. "Why not just tell me you need your freedom? This feels awful." I started to walk back to our room when I heard her cry out, "Andrew!" I turned as she missed the railing and fell down the stairs. I rushed to her side but couldn't stop her in time. When I got to the bottom, she was on her side, groaning, "Mir! Oh my gosh, are you okay? Can you move your legs?" I watched her feet shift, but her face showed she was in pain. "What about your arms?" She cried out right away. "I think I hurt my arm." She had a cut on her forehead, so I rushed to the kitchen to get a dish towel. I pressed it against her injury to stop the bleeding. "I'm going to call for help," I said as I ran upstairs to make the call. "Yes, my wife has fallen down the stairs, and she's bleeding from her forehead and might have hurt her arm." After giving my address, I hurried back to Meredith and held the towel to her forehead. "What happened?" I turned my back for a moment, and then I heard you scream. I gently kissed her cheek to comfort her. I don't know. I felt dizzy, and when I reached for the railing, I missed. Guilt filled me. I felt responsible. I could have handled my feelings better. "I'm sorry, Mare. I'm sorry I got upset." Tears filled my eyes as I tried to stay strong. I heard the ambulance arrive and carefully let go of her to answer the door. The paramedics quickly took charge, and soon a police officer came up to me with a worried look. "Is everything okay? I heard the call." "I think so. They're with her now. At least she's awake." "I believe she might have hurt her arm," I answered. "What happened?" the officer asked. "She fell down the stairs," I replied shortly. "How?" I looked him in the eye. "We were having an argument, and when I turned back to the bedroom, I heard her scream and couldn't stop the fall." Was the argument physical? I stared at him, shocked. "What? No." I turned to stop the conversation. I could tell he wanted more details. "She felt dizzy, and when she tried to grab the railing, she missed." "So you didn't see her fall?" he insisted. "No, I was turning away when I heard her scream. Those were her words when I asked what happened, and I'm sure she will say the same." The look he gave me didn't help my nerves. 20 minutes later, they had my wife on a stretcher and were getting ready to take her away. "I'll go check on the kids and tell your parents what happened. I'll meet you at the hospital, honey," I said, kissing her forehead. She squeezed my hand gently as the ambulance drove off, followed closely by the police car. I took a few deep breaths to calm myself. "What a mess," I whispered to myself. Before I could step back inside, my kind neighbor Helda was carefully walking across our lawn. "Andrew, is everything okay?" she asked, worry on her face. "Hi, Helda. No, not really." Meredith fell down the stairs and got hurt. The elderly lady covered her mouth with her hand. Oh my goodness. The poor girl. Helda kept asking me questions, and I felt myself getting a bit short with her because I needed to leave. Finally, with her curiosity satisfied, I rushed inside to gather my things and head to my in-laws. I called Bert and Glenda to give them a heads-up and asked if I could talk to the kids. They agreed. The usual 15-minute drive took about 40 minutes because of an accident at the only bridge to their house. When I arrived, the kids were in the living room watching a soccer game on TV. All their eyes turned to me when I walked in, and my oldest could tell something was wrong. "What's wrong, Dad?" Jenny asked with concern. I sat down between them and told them about their mother going to the hospital. Worry spread across all their faces. "Can we go to the hospital with you?" little Gina asked. "I think you should stay here with Nana and Papa until I know more. Her arm might be broken, so she could be busy for a while. Once I have some updates, I'll call Nana Glenda and she can bring you both for a visit, okay?" The in-laws supported my plan and encouraged the kids to relax until we knew more. After some long hugs from my daughters, I quickly used the bathroom before heading to the hospital. When I stepped outside, Bert was waiting for me. "Son, is everything all right between you two?" I must have looked surprised. Mare's been a little distant lately, and we thought there might be tension at home. And now this. He shrugged. "Bert, what do you mean? Are you suggesting that I hurt Meredith?" No, no. I know you would never do that," he said, realizing he might have said the wrong thing. We're just worried, that's all. Well, Bert, I can't lie. Things have felt off since Mir started working, but every time I asked, she assured me it was nothing. If you two felt something was wrong, why didn't you call me? It wasn't the right time to mention the surprise Mir dropped on me. Glenda wanted to, but I told her it was not our place, he replied. I put my hand on the shoulder of a man I cared about. Bert, Meredith and I are lucky to have you both in our lives. Asking us questions or checking in is never an intrusion. You know how much you both mean to me, to us. I watched the older man blush slightly and smile. Please let us know what's happening as soon as you can. Of course, Bert. You have my word. The trip to the hospital took longer than I expected because of traffic. I arrived after another 90 minutes. There was some confusion at the admission desk, but I learned that Meredith was being checked and x-rayed. The nurse guided me to a quieter waiting area where I finally had to slow down and think about what had happened that evening. From Bert's comments, it seemed I was not the only one who noticed a change in Meredith. How did it come to this? There must have been signs that she was unhappy with me or our life. We both grew up loving God, church, and family. The loss of my parents felt heavier now. They were always a great source of guidance. Without them, I felt a big emptiness. My older sister Betty was out of touch. She had gone her own way in her youth, moving away from the values my parents held dear. She didn't attend our parents' funerals. We were never close, but I think we care for each other in our own ways. I still send her a Christmas card every year, though I never hear back. I'm not sure if she still lives in Nova Scotia. Mr. Gregory? A voice pulled me from my thoughts. I looked over and saw a young woman in the doorway. I stood up quickly and walked over to her. How is Meredith? Nobody can seem to give me a clear answer. Her face didn't look hopeful. I'm sorry, Mr. Gregory, but I'm not a doctor. My name is Elizabeth. I'm a social worker and counselor here at the hospital. She could see my confusion. The doctor will be here soon with an update. She pointed back to the waiting room. I was hoping we could have a brief conversation about your wife's accident. I was confused by the request, but thought they cover all the bases these days. As we sat down, I noticed someone else at the entrance. It was the same police officer who had come to our house, sipping coffee from a cup. Am I being charged with something? I looked between the officer and the social worker. What? No, of course not, Elizabeth said. Unless you want to confess to something? The officer muttered something that we could hear. Elizabeth shot him a disapproving look and turned back to me. I'm sorry, Mr. Gregory. Despite the awkwardness, I was here to get the whole story. Does he have to be here? I already told him what happened. I gestured toward the officer. No, he doesn't. However, this is a chance to make your story more believable. Is this really how things are now? A man is seen as a liar until he proves otherwise? Elizabeth was trying to ease my worries. She explained that the way we were talking was normal for all domestic situations. I rubbed my face with my hands, accepting her words, and began to tell her what happened that evening, leaving out some personal details. When I finished, I watched as Elizabeth noted everything down. Can you tell me what started the argument? I felt my face heat up. What looked like anger was really embarrassment. Elizabeth, I respect your job and know it's important. This matter is very personal for my wife and me. I don't feel right discussing it without her here. It affects both of us. She nodded slowly, acknowledging my feelings. I can respect that, Mr. Gregory. Maybe we can finish this when your wife is feeling better. I agreed. I was about to speak to the officer again when a doctor came in, making me stand up quickly. Mr. Gregory? I nodded. I'm Dr. Brown. We just checked on your wife. She has a cut above her right eye, but her eye is fine. She has some mild head trauma, but there's no swelling. She has a moderate concussion, but it's not serious. She has a small fracture in her arm, which we are treating now. The rest of her tests came back clear. Other than some bruises and a bit of stiffness, she's doing well. I felt a wave of relief wash over me with the mostly good news. Can I see her? I understand your worry, Mr. Gregory, but I want her to have the night to rest. She was quite upset, so I gave her a mild sedative to help her sleep. He patted my shoulder. How about tomorrow morning after my rounds? Anytime after 10:30. Does that work? I nodded as the doctor left the room. I turned to the social worker. Can we finish this conversation tomorrow with Meredith? Of course, she replied. I'll come by after lunch. Does that sound good? Great, thank you. I need to call my in-laws to update them and tell the kids what's happening. As I left the waiting area, I passed the officer, who gave me a serious nod. I was on the phone before I reached the parking lot, explaining everything to Bert and Glenda. We decided to let the girls stay there, and after a bit of chatting, I spoke to my daughters and reassured them that their mom would be okay. I promised that Nana could take them to visit tomorrow after school. That night was long and sleepless. Part of me was relieved that Meredith wasn't seriously hurt, but the argument that led to her fall weighed on my mind. I hoped that the close call would make her think twice about what she was asking of me, but I worried it might come up again later. I could see that we needed a lot of help, and I was committed to making our marriage work. It was 10:45 a.m. when I arrived at the hospital and entered my wife's room. A nurse was beside her bed asking questions, and a man in a suit stood a little way back. I approached the bedside, trying to catch Meredith's gaze. Mer? Honey? How are you feeling? I noticed her eyes drift to the man before she replied. Sore, but I'm getting better, she said quietly. I leaned closer and gently touched her hand. You really scared me. I saw the doctor last night, and he told me that Meredith is okay besides her broken arm. She is really lucky. I smiled and held her hand gently. Yes, she is, said the man in the suit. I turned to face him. I don't think we've met. I'm Andrew, Meredith's husband. Who are you? He looked at Meredith, then back at me. I'm Blake Edwards, Meredith's boss. I felt uneasy. What are you doing here? Andrew, honey, he just wanted to check on me. Please be nice, Meredith said softly. All right, Mr. Edwards, thank you for your concern, but I would like some time alone with my wife, I said firmly. He stared at me for a moment, then nodded. Of course. He walked over to the bed and lightly patted Meredith's arm. I'll see you later, Meredith. Take care. Meredith smiled at him as he left, but I felt a chill in my chest as I watched him go. He seemed confident, but something about him made me uneasy. I shook off the feeling and focused on my wife. Why did he come here, Meredith? He found out I wasn't going to work, so he wanted to check on me, she replied. Do you think that was okay, considering what you told me last night? I saw that my words upset her, and she held back tears. His visit was innocent, Andrew. Can we not talk about that now? I wanted to discuss it, but her health mattered more, so I took a deep breath and stayed quiet. I adjusted her pillows and filled her water cup. A nurse came in and said she was taking Meredith to physiotherapy to assess her condition and create a care plan. She'll be back after 12:30, Mr. Gregory. Why don't you come back then? The nurse said, helping Meredith into a wheelchair. I gave Meredith a gentle goodbye and promised to return. After leaving the hospital, I found a coffee shop not far away. I realized I hadn't eaten in a while. My stomach reminded me of that. I sat down and ordered breakfast and coffee. I used my phone to check in with my in-laws and my job. I requested a few days off, and they were very understanding. When my meal arrived, I ate quickly, catching the waitress's eye as she looked surprised. Can I get you anything else? She asked. A side of toast with peanut butter and blueberry jam, please, I replied. Sure, she said, smiling. I glanced at her name tag. It read Flo. After the toast, I suddenly felt a tap on my arm. I jumped up, waking Flo. Easy. My boss told me I had to wake you because of your snoring. She smiled. Oh no, did I fall asleep? How long was I out? Not sure. You looked so peaceful. I didn't want to disturb you. She checked her watch. It's almost 1:15 now. 1:15. I have to go. How much do I owe you? $12. 35. I paid her with a $20 and thanked her. I walked quickly back to Meredith's room. When I entered, I saw her boss sitting next to her bed, smiling and holding her hand. I cleared my throat. They both looked at me. He smiled, but Meredith looked a bit embarrassed. Sorry to interrupt. Nice to see you again, Mr. Edwards. Not working today? I added a hint of sarcasm. Yes, I just came to check on my best assistant. He held her hand tight, and she smiled just a bit. I wanted to keep her company until you came back. I could sense his sarcasm and was ready to respond when I was interrupted again. Oh, good. You're here, Mr. Gregory. I was hoping we could continue our conversation with your wife here. I turned to see Elizabeth, the social worker, smiling. Yes, of course. I motioned for her to come in and meet my wife. Mrs. Gregory, my name is Elizabeth. I'm a social worker and counselor at the hospital. I talked with your husband last night about your accident, and he thought it would be better for us to speak together. Is that all right with you? Yes, of course. Whatever my husband feels is best. Elizabeth turned to Blake. And you are? Oh, yes, hi. I'm Blake Edwards. Meredith works for me. I was just checking on her to see if she needed anything. Well, aren't you a kind boss? His face brightened at her compliment. Perhaps you could excuse us now, Blake. You know, family matters and all. I shot him a look. Yes, of course. Take care, Meredith. I'll keep everything in order until you're better. Don't forget what I said. He waved to me as he walked by, still smiling. Meredith smiled too, but I could tell it faded when she saw me. What did he say, Meredith? I might have sounded harsh. He told me not to rush back to work and to take all the time I need to recover. It could have been true, but it felt empty to me. Well, isn't he such a nice boss? Elizabeth chimed in. Once we settled down, Elizabeth went over what we had talked about the night before, and so far, Meredith agreed with the details. When I asked him about the argument, Mr. Gregory felt it wasn't his place to discuss such a private matter without you here. So, I hope we can clear that up today. Now, I know talking about personal things can be hard, but everything remains confidential unless I'm compelled by law. Okay? We both nodded, and Elizabeth opened her notebook. So, Mrs. Gregory, can you tell me what caused the argument? I was glad she started with Meredith. I hoped she would realize how her words affected our marriage. Well, we were talking about my new job. It was taking up more time than Andrew was comfortable with. I was trying to explain how the job made me feel valued, but my husband tends to see things differently. If I had felt surprised before, this was much worse. Mayor, that's not what we were talking about. I've never had a problem with you working, and you know that. Mr. Gregory, please keep your voice down, the social worker said gently. It was obvious she'd already made up her mind about the situation. Mrs. Gregory, do you remember how you fell? My heart raced. I could feel the tension. If she misunderstood the argument, what else might be altered? Honestly, I'm not sure. It's all a blur, she said, closing her eyes like she was trying hard to remember. We argued at the top of the stairs, and the next thing I knew, Andrew was standing over me. She avoided looking directly at me. I wanted to explain my side, but Elizabeth stopped me before I could speak. Can I see you outside for a moment, Mr. Gregory? She gently guided me to the hallway. I glanced at Meredith, hoping for some connection, but she looked away. Once in the hallway, Elizabeth addressed me directly. I sense she is holding back, and it's likely because you are present. She's holding back because she's not telling the truth, I replied, trying to keep calm. Why would your wife lie? Does she feel uneasy? I felt like I was being portrayed as the bad guy here. Look, Elizabeth, my wife asked if she could stay with her boss for the night. I said no. As I started to walk back to our bedroom, she suddenly fell. I hurried over to help her, and she said she felt faint and tried to grab the handrail but missed it. That's how it went. I don't understand why her story is different now. Her face was hard to read, but at least she was listening. Can you wait outside for a moment? Maybe she'll feel better sharing her story without you present, the nurse suggested. I wanted to argue, but she quickly added, I don't mean it in a bad way. Maybe she's just shy to talk. Can I speak with her woman to woman? I agreed, leaning against the wall while she went back in. Time felt like it stretched on forever. I lost track of how long I waited until a security officer walked over. I felt a wave of worry. Just as he got close to me, he turned and entered Meredith's room. My interest was stirred, and I tried to follow him, but then met Elizabeth. What's happening, Elizabeth? I asked. Mr. Gregory, I'm sorry, but I need to make sure the patient is safe, she replied. Safe? What do you mean? She walked me further down the hallway. Sometimes, after tough experiences, people can forget things or feel blocked. She sighed. Your wife's story is different from yours, and she mentioned being scared of how you would react. My worry grew. Mr. Gregory, I think it's best if you go home and wait to hear from us. If you enter her room without permission, you will have to leave. If what you say is true, the truth will come out. Any aggressive behavior could be seen as threatening and could make things worse for you. My situation? I'm sorry, that wasn't the right phrase, she said, giving my arm a gentle pat. Please go home, take care of yourself, and we'll look after your wife. Wait for our call before you come back. With not many options, I drove home and called my in-laws to update them on what happened, making sure to say nice things about Meredith. I didn't want to add to their worries. I mentioned that they could see the kids, but should check first. It seemed that I was the only one blocked from visiting. Once home, I tried to keep my mind busy, hoping for some good news, and that everything would be okay. After freshening up and eating, I took care of chores, including laundry and preparing meals. It was almost 10 p.m. when I realized I hadn't heard anything from the hospital. I decided to check in with my in-laws, so I called their number, and Gloria answered on the fourth ring. Hello? She said, sounding a bit unsure. Oh, hi, Gloria. I wanted to see how the girls are doing and if you had any news about Meredith, I said. I expected a longer answer, but there was silence. Hello? Gloria? After a moment, I heard her breathe deeply. How could you? She asked, her voice shaking. How could I what, Gloria? She didn't respond, and the tension grew. Gloria? Suddenly, a man's voice interrupted. It's Bert, Andrew. What do you need? I was surprised by his tone. Oh, hey, Bert. Is Gloria okay? She's obviously upset, Andrew. Look, Bert, I don't understand why this is so vague. I just wanted to know about your visit with Meredith and see my girls. Oh, you remember them? His voice was sharp. What? What do you mean? I haven't slept in almost 2 days. I was asked to leave the hospital, and I want my girls to see their mother. I was hoping for a call from you, and that's why I'm calling. What's going on? The girls are asleep. You'll have to try again tomorrow. Okay, I can do that. Can you tell me why you and Gloria are shutting me out? There was silence on his end. Bert? She told us what happened, Andrew. I never thought I would hear those words come from my daughter. It felt like a heavy blow. What was happening? What did she say happened, Bert? I asked, needing answers. There was only silence. Why did you push her? It might have been an accident, but what kind of man does that to the mother of his children? Good night, Andrew. Before I could gather my thoughts, I realized he had already ended the call. I felt unsteady and had to lean against the wall to steady myself. My mind was racing, repeating the words, "How could you?" over and over. I finally found a chair and sat down, staring at the empty room, trying to make sense of it all. Sleep felt far away. I spent the night feeling a mix of sadness and anger. I was heartbroken over how things had escalated and upset with my wife for letting it come to this. Was she so ashamed of her decisions that she would hurt me instead? I prayed more than I ever had, asking for the safety of my daughters, for Meredith to resolve this situation before it got worse, and for the strength to face the challenges I was dealing with. The next morning, I went to work, calling the girls briefly. It seemed they didn't yet sense the trouble brewing. Bert was short and unfriendly during our conversation. I tried to explain that there was more to the story, but he didn't seem interested. As I walked into the office, I noticed people kept their distance. My mood was clear, and I knew my body language showed I wanted to be left alone. I barely sat down at my desk before my boss, Gus, came in. You okay, Andrew? You look tired. He was always straightforward. It's been a tough couple of days. Meredith fell and hurt her arm. It's been a lot to handle. Is she okay? Sounds like it. They say she didn't have any major injuries. She's still at the hospital for now. What are you doing here? You should be with her. I can have Jimmy take over your work today. I hesitated. I couldn't explain that I wasn't allowed to see her. That would only lead to more questions. She has family and friends with her. She told me to go to work and come by later. This seemed to satisfy him. Okay. but I need you to help with a new employee today." He left my office and whispered to someone in the hallway. When he returned, he brought a young woman with him. "This is Rebecca Johnson. Can you show her around?" While it wasn't the ideal task, it might help distract me. "Sure, Gus." He smiled and left, telling Rebecca she was in good hands. "I'm really sorry about your wife," she said, noticing my confused expression. "I overheard Gus in the hall." I stood and nodded, grateful for her kindness. "Thank you. Let's get you started. Feel free to ask questions at any time. This isn't a classroom." Rebecca laughed softly, which was reassuring. I spent the morning showing her around the different departments and introducing her to supervisors. We shared a coffee in the lunchroom once we were done. "Do you have any more questions?" I asked. She smiled. "No, I think I'm good." "You've done a great job." "Thank you." I got up and walked toward the door. "I'm sure Gus is waiting for you. I'll head back to my office to get some work done." "Thanks again, Andrew. I hope your wife gets better soon." Her words brought back the heavy thoughts I had been trying to avoid all morning. "Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. I'm sure you'll enjoy it here." I tried to focus on my work, but my mind kept wandering. I called my in-laws and spoke with Bert. I wanted to plan a time to pick up the girls, but he told me that Meredith would be coming home after dinner and would stay with them for a few days. "It's important for the girls to be with their mother right now," he said without any emotion. "I'll take them to school, and Gloria will help look after our daughter." "Bert, I haven't seen my girls in almost 4 days. Can I come by to visit after dinner? I want to see Meredith, too. I didn't know she was being released. The hospital didn't inform me." "Listen, Andrew," he replied. "With everything going on, I think it's best to give her some space for now. With all due respect, Bert, she's my wife. You can't stop me from visiting her." "I suppose you have a point," he sighed. "But if what my daughter said is true, I might have to get a court order to keep you away from her and the girls for a while. Her boss is coming by tonight to discuss the options." "You can't be serious, Bert. What happened to trusting me? You know I would never intentionally hurt Meredith, and now I can't see my girls." I paused to calm down. "Please, Bert, don't do this." The silence on his end felt heavy. It was like I was falling and couldn't stop it. I heard him take a deep breath. "Look, Andrew, we're all struggling, and Meredith is really suffering. I understand what you're saying, and I want to believe you. This will take time. Give Meredith that, okay? We'll get the girls to you in a day or so once things calm down." Was his request fair? I didn't think so. But revealing the truth now would only make it seem like I was desperate. "All right, Bert. Just please don't keep my family from me." After a few more exchanged words, we ended the call and I slid down the wall, realizing I had been leaning there until I ended up on the floor. I wanted to feel hopeful after our conversation, but a sense of worry left me feeling empty. "Dear Lord, please give me the strength to get through this," I prayed out loud. The next day at 3 in the afternoon, Bert's name appeared on my phone. With a knot in my stomach, I answered. "Hello, Bert." "Andrew, I won't beat around the bush. Meredith has asked her boss to talk to you." "Why does she want me to talk to her boss?" "I don't know. All I know is my daughter met with him, and she wants him to speak with you." "I would prefer to hear it from her, Bert." I was firm. A minute later, I heard Meredith's voice. "Andrew, I think it would be good for us if you met with Blake. This has spiraled, and he's the only one who can discuss this fairly." "I'm not sure about that, Meredith," I said skeptically. "Hello, Andrew. This is Blake. Can I please speak to my wife again?" I asked firmly this time. "Easy, Andrew. She's still not well. In the interest of resolving things, she's asked me to talk to you. It could be a good chance to clear things up." I struggled to find the right words. "Andrew? Are you still there?" "Yes." "How about we meet somewhere neutral, like Hornsby's on the bay? Do you know where that is?" It was a little restaurant on the edge of town. "Yes, I know it. Let's meet there tonight at 6 p.m. my treat." "I'll be there." I barely said the words before I hung up. As I pulled into the parking lot that evening, I felt a mix of emotions inside me. I wanted to talk to this guy. There is wisdom in being patient, but getting angry easily can lead to mistakes. That thought stayed with me. All the advice I had learned was clear, but it was easy to forget when facing someone like him. No, I had to stay calm. This man was my only link to Meredith right now, and I had to see how this went. Maybe I was lucky, and he was here to tell me it's all over. But from the past few days, luck had not been on my side. Inside, my eyes went to a back table, and of course, Mr. Edwards was already there. When I got close, he stood up and reached out his hand to greet me. I chose to ignore it and sat down across from him. There's no harm in being polite, is there, Andrew? Was it politeness that led you to suggest Meredith do things that could hurt her marriage? Ah, we're getting straight to the point. You're not worried about your wife or your daughters? That's a big misrepresentation of what I said. You're a good lawyer, but your way of talking needs work. He smiled at my comment. A young server came over to check on our orders. Blake already had a drink in front of him. Hi, I'm Christy, and I'll be serving you. Your friend already has a drink. Can I get you something? The server looked at me and I said, just a draft. Something local, please. Sure. Do you need menus? I looked at Blake, who signaled me to decide. I'm fine, thank you. I don't plan to stay long. She smiled and turned to Blake. And you? I'll pass. Thank you, Christy. Her face lit up when he said her name. I could sense his interest. Let's get to the point, shall we? I understand from Meredith that you are a very involved father and a good husband. He leaned closer to me. Honestly, that stuff isn't for me. It's not my type. I shrugged. Is it easier to take from those who care? By his expression, it looked like he didn't get my hint. Meredith thinks the world of you. She loves you deeply. Her commitment to your marriage is one of the things I admire most about her. So, it's all about the chase? My words didn't seem to bother him. Why are you making this such a big issue, Andrew? She's not trying to leave you. It's just a little fun for a short time. After raising 2 girls and taking care of you, surely she deserves that. Are you really so closed-minded that you would deny her some happiness? We were married with promises to each other, in front of family and friends. There were no exceptions. I have kept my promises without question. Meredith didn't think about straying until she started working with you. Ah, yes. Meredith has mentioned your strong beliefs. Tell me, do you really think the gentle will inherit the earth? I smiled at his misunderstanding. Being gentle doesn't mean being weak. It means being kind and humble, something I'm sure you don't understand. He laughed. I can't believe you believe that. Only the strongest survive. He laughed again. Besides, if you think that, you should let your wife try new things. Like you? Exactly. Think about it. I'm your safest choice. I'm not trying to take her away. I'm not looking for a serious relationship, and I definitely don't want a wife or kids. It's just a chance to make some memories. That's interesting. Blake, I don't see you as a passing thought. I see you as something harmful, like a virus that causes trouble for no good reason. You, my friend, are a bit strange. He leaned back as Christy brought my drink. She smiled at me but gave Blake a long look. If I didn't know better, I'd say they knew each other. Look, Blake, you're a wealthy and powerful man who can have anyone he wants. Why are you choosing someone who is already married with a family? He looked at me as if he hadn't heard a word. He finished his drink and stood up, leaning on the table and looking down at me. We could talk all night, but I doubt you'll see the mistake in your way of thinking. Are you really prepared to risk your beautiful wife and all those years together for something so small? Are you ready to put your daughters through months of fighting and maybe even a separation? His words struck me. Even though things seemed bad, I felt we could sort this out like we always had. That's a strong point, counselor. Let me turn your question around. What does she want? I know it's not what she wants, but if it came to that, you'd be very sad and lonely, Andrew. That sounds like a warning. I stood up to meet his gaze. Just an observation, my friend. My assistant has been through a tough time, both physically and emotionally. The signs are clear. I leaned in closer. We both know she is in this situation because of things outside her control, and it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't affected her thoughts. He stepped back from the table. Just think about it, Andrew. I'll take care of your drink. He walked away, and I watched him stop to talk to our server as he paid. She smiled and waved goodbye as he left. I sat down again and thought about our conversation. Was he really speaking for Meredith? Would she push me this far if she loved me? One thing was certain. I needed some legal help. My marriage was falling apart, and I had no idea what would happen next. "Can I get you another drink?" Christy's gentle voice pulled me from my thoughts. "What?" "I'm sorry. Did you say something?" "I asked if you'd like another drink." Her smile was warm and inviting. "Oh, no thanks. I'm okay." Christy paused for a moment, then sat in the chair Blake had used. "You look like you could use a friend. Are you all right?" I was taken aback by her concern. "Thanks, Christy, but I'm fine. Just dealing with some personal issues." I gave her a polite smile. "You know," she leaned closer, "maybe some company would help. I hate to see a good man upset. I finish work at 5. I had to look away from her sincere eyes to gather my thoughts. I wouldn't consider it, even if I were single. Too much was at stake. I mentally searched for a polite way to say no. "Christy, I appreciate it, but I'm a very married man and would never betray my wife. You deserve someone much better than a boring guy like me." I watched her face change from friendly to upset. "Are you serious?" She raised her voice, drawing attention from other customers. "I can't believe you would even say that. This is unbelievable." With that, she pushed back from the table and marched towards the kitchen. I looked around awkwardly and noticed everyone staring at me. I had no idea what had just happened, so I shrugged my shoulders. Thinking it was best to go, I didn't finish my drink and walked toward the door. Before I could leave, a man in a shirt and tie stepped in front of me. "Are you running away?" "I'm sorry. What do you mean?" "I'm the manager, and I just heard from a very upset server about some comments you made. Do you have no shame?" His voice was serious. "Sir, I don't know what she said, but I meant no harm. I didn't say anything wrong." "So you're saying my upset employee is lying?" I felt everyone in the room staring at me. "Why would she do that? People like you think you can say anything without facing the music." There was no way I could prove I hadn't done anything wrong. Part of me respected his care for his staff, but I felt wrongly accused. "I don't know, but I promise I was only polite." "Just leave and don't come back." "I might call the police." To avoid more embarrassment, I walked around him and headed to my car. I thought I had upset her when I gently turned down her offer. As I drove, I replayed our conversation but couldn't understand her reaction or why it got so tense so fast. Feeling uneasy, I decided to visit my in-laws. I wanted to see my wife and ask about her boss, but mostly, I missed my daughters. The feeling was strong. I didn't call ahead, knowing I might have trouble with Bert, and I didn't want them to get ready for me. When I parked in front of their house, I quietly closed my car door and walked to the front, unsure whether to knock or ring the doorbell. It felt odd not to be welcomed here. I finally chose the doorbell. After a few awkward moments, the door opened, and Gail looked very upset. "What are you doing here?" "Gail, I'd like to see my girls and, if I can, chat with Meredith." I sensed her anger, so I tried to be kind. "Please, Gail, I haven't seen my girls in days. I miss them so much. I think seeing Meredith would be good for both of us, too. Please." She thought for a moment. "Just a minute." She closed the door gently, and I felt hopeful. A little later, the door opened again, and there stood Bert. "Andrew." His voice was firm. "I'll send the girls out for you to visit." "What about Meredith? Can I see her too?" "On her boss's advice, she won't talk to you unless he is here." I wanted to argue, but I was beyond shocked now. "Don't you think that's a bit much, Bert? I'm okay talking with you present if you're worried." He seemed to think it over just as the girls ran past him. "Daddy!" they shouted together. In that moment, tears filled my eyes as I hugged my two little princesses. All my worries faded away as they excitedly shared what they had been doing since I last saw them. We sat on the steps with both girls snugly beside me. Finally, after all the chatter, my youngest looked at me quizzically. "Why are you crying, Daddy?" Gina's simple question hit me hard. "Daddy's just had a rough few days, that's all." They both hugged me tightly. "How's Mommy? Is she feeling better?" My oldest, Jenny, asked. "She's been sad, too. She says her arm hurts a lot and she's been moving slowly." I'd like to see her. Is she inside? I knew I shouldn't use my kids to see their mother, but I felt I had no other choice. Nana said she went to bed. Her medicine makes her sleepy. Gina didn't know she was bursting my hopes. Realizing I couldn't change the situation, I turned my focus back to the girls. The porch light turned on and Bert opened the door. Time to get ready for bed, girls. Can't Daddy put us to bed, Papa? My youngest asked. Unfortunately, your dad has a lot to take care of, he replied, giving me a serious look. I thought about saying something but didn't want to cause any problems for my girls. Papa is right, girls. Now go on and be good for Nana and Papa, okay? I love you both so much. We'll have some fun together soon, I promised. Bert's expression softened, likely relieved I didn't argue. Gina hugged me and waved before running inside. Jenny got up but then sat back down next to me. Are you and Mommy fighting? My heart sank at her question. I took a breath, hoping she couldn't see my worry. It's nothing bad, sweetie. We'll all be back together soon. I promise. After that, she hugged me one more time and got up, carefully moving past her papa. I felt Bert's gaze as I fought back tears. His voice wavered when he spoke. Take care, Andrew. He went inside and shut the door. The rest of the night felt like I was on autopilot. I went through the motions of driving, cooking dinner, and showering before bed. I watched an old classic movie to distract myself from my feelings. My mind raced with thoughts, so I remembered some advice from a speaker at my job. When your mind is busy, making lists can help. He suggested writing things down to ease your thoughts. So, I got up, grabbed a piece of paper and a pencil, talked to Gus, and arranged some time off. Find a lawyer, research Blake Edwards. See my girls, work to bring them home. Speak with Meredith. Decide about my marriage. Having the main points written down made me feel better, and I finally fell asleep. When I woke up, I felt refreshed and clear-headed. I decided to stay positive, work through my issues, and bring my family back together, including Meredith. Starting with the first item on my list, I called my boss. I had trouble finding my cell phone and wondered if I left it in the car. Before I reached the door, I heard its familiar ringtone. Following the sound, I found it in the bathroom, resting on the sink. A quick glance at the screen showed it was my boss. Good morning, Gus. You must be psychic because I was just about to call you. Listen, Andrew, there's no easy way to say this, so I'm just going to say it. You've been suspended without pay while the board looks into something. Looks into what? Harassment. Harassment? Who did I supposedly harass? His silence felt heavy. Gus, I have to know who is saying this. Rebecca Johnson. He finally said, The new girl? The one I trained? We walked all over the place together. When would I have done anything? She said you cornered her in the lunchroom and made inappropriate comments. I was so shocked that I couldn't say anything. Don't come to work today, Andrew. The board will inform you when they want to speak with you. I need to warn you, if they find you did what she said, you will lose your job right away, according to company rules. Gus, wait. You can't believe. Goodbye, Andrew. The call ended suddenly, and I found myself facing an accusation I didn't deserve. My good mood vanished instantly. The shock hit me hard, and I sank into my chair. My stomach growled loudly, bringing me back to reality. I pushed myself up and walked into the kitchen, staring at the fridge. The thought of cooking felt overwhelming, so I decided to go out for a meal. As I walked past the table, I noticed my list. I was determined to eat something and find a lawyer. I found myself at McDonald's calling everyone I could think of to look for legal help. News about Meredith's accident had spread fast, and many people avoided talking to me. Some coworkers already knew about the claims against me and didn't want to talk. I tried reaching out to several couples from church, but they also seemed to have made up their minds about my situation. So much for being innocent until proven guilty. I searched online for law firms but didn't know what kind of lawyer I needed: defense, divorce, or both. I decided my best approach was to walk in and ask questions. I finished my coffee and walked outside to my car. To my surprise, I saw a police car parked next to mine. As I got closer, I saw an officer stepping out, looking like he was waiting for me. Light day at the office? I asked, trying to be sarcastic. I took the day off to run some errands, so don't mind me if I don't wish to stay and chat, I added. Well, your errands will have to wait. We need to talk, but not here, he replied. I don't have time, officer. My reply was interrupted by his radio. "Can you confirm he is the accused?" He leaned into his shoulder and pushed a button on his radio. "Affirmative, dispatch. I'm just informing him of his required attendance at the precinct. 104. Will advise. Can you explain why I need to go to the precinct?" "Not under arrest yet, but if you don't come, a warrant will be issued, and you won't like that ride," he said. He looked at me with a slight smirk, as if challenging me to say no. "Okay, I will follow you," I replied. He smiled and nodded. Alone in my car, I wondered why I was being called to the police station. I hadn't done anything wrong concerning Meredith as far as I knew, and nothing had been written down. The office issue was still new and seemed like it was only an internal matter for now. I decided to wait and see what was going to happen. After being guided to a room in the back, I took a seat. The room looked just like what you see in movies. I imagined there were cameras in the corners, and a quick look confirmed it. After about 20 minutes, the door opened, and in walked a man in a strange tweed jacket along with the police officer. Good cop, bad cop? I joked, but neither of them seemed amused. Worth a try, I thought. The man in the tweed jacket sat down and placed a folder on the table. "You've been quite busy, Mr. Carter. It's been an eventful week for you," he said. I decided to stay quiet. It seemed like more was coming my way. "No comments?" he pressed. I looked at the table and remained silent. "All right, I guess I'll do the talking," he continued. "Do you often go to a restaurant called Hornsby's?" I lifted my eyes to meet his. I felt another wave of tension. I had eaten there before. "Were you there last night?" I nodded slightly. "Seems the owner has a problem with you. He claims you tried to make an inappropriate advance toward one of his staff." "That's not true," I replied. "Christy says otherwise. She claims you wanted her to come back to your house," he added, looking at his notes. "I didn't say anything like that," I insisted. "Do you have recordings of this?" "She just asked if I wanted some company because I looked sad." I said no politely. "You are right. We don't have any recordings, but you can see why we have to question your account," he said. "Actually, no. I don't see why you would doubt my story," I replied. The man flipped through a few pages in his folder. "Are you being looked at for harassment at work?" "What? How?" "This was said today, and that is what it is. I didn't say anything wrong to a coworker. We're the police. It's our job to know what's going on." "That's 2 clear issues in 2 days, Mr. Carter. Are you feeling lonely? Or do you just like younger women?" "I'm not like that," I replied calmly. I knew if I got angry, it would make me look bad. "Do you get angry a lot?" Tweed asked suddenly. "No more than anyone else. I like to think I'm pretty fair." That made the officer laugh a bit. "My patience was running out. Can I leave now? I'm not sure why I'm here except for you trying to scare me." Tweed considered my words. "Our investigations are just starting, Mr. Carter. We will contact you. You can go now." I got up from the chair, but before I reached the door, Tweed called after me. "Oh, Mr. Carter, I forgot to give you these." He handed me 4 papers one at a time. Restraining orders for Hornsby's Bar and Christy Albright, another for Rebecca Johnson, and lastly, for Meredith Carter and her 2 children. I don't even remember the drive home. The next thing I knew, I was at my kitchen table looking at the papers. They all felt unfair, but the one about my wife and kids hurt the most. How did it get to this point so fast? How was news spreading so quickly? I wasn't perfect, but I struggled to understand why I was facing this pain. With tears in my eyes, I looked up. "Jesus, I know we face hard times and unfair treatment, but I need your help. I feel punished for something, and unfortunately, I don't know what it is." I ask. "No, I beg you to show me what you want me to learn. Nothing happens without your guidance, and I know you have plans for us all. I need to trust you, Lord. I want to trust you, Lord, but I feel weak and—" I wiped my tears. "I don't understand what you want from me. I am losing, Lord. I am losing my family. Please don't let me lose them. I pray that you keep me safe and true. In your name, amen." All my hope and strength were gone. My to-do list vanished. I didn't care anymore. I couldn't work, see, or talk to my kids. I got lost in distractions and self-pity. I was breaking down, and for the first time I felt abandoned. Everything in my life, my home and my health got worse over the next 2 weeks. I barely slept, ate, or lived. But today was when real changes began. It started with a phone call. "Hello?" I grumbled more than spoke. Hello, Andrew? Andrew Carter? The voice sounded familiar. This is he. All right. Andrew, this is Blake Edwards. We've met a few times. I know who you are. What do you want? I'd like to set up a meeting with you, me, and Meredith. Just hearing her name pulled me from my sadness. Was that hope I felt? Okay. When and where? I assume you know the firm I work at. He seemed to chuckle. How about tomorrow at 9 a.m.? Our receptionist will point you to the right room. Can I count on you being there? Yes, of course. I'll be there. He hung up without much ceremony. Meredith wanted to meet. Maybe we could start to move forward. I felt a spark of energy for the first time in days, and I decided it was time to clean my house and myself. I knew this was just the beginning, but at least it was a start. I spent the day trying to get my life organized. After a long shower and something to eat, I began to think about what I would face tomorrow. I grabbed my phone and went to my office. When I sat down and turned on my computer, I saw that I had missed several emails. I had turned off email notifications on my phone because I didn't like using it for long messages. I read through everything, but nothing seemed important, except for one from my boss. It was sent 4 days ago. I clicked on it. Andrew. The board has done their initial work and would like to meet with you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Please confirm. Gus. I can't believe this, I said to myself. I picked up my phone and called Gus. You're a little late, Andrew. No greeting. No asking how I was. I just got your message, Gus. I'm sorry, but I was busy with personal matters and didn't turn my computer on until today. Will the board see me today? Not likely. I'll need to check and get back to you. I have to tell you, Andrew, they are not pleased with you. They think you've ignored them. No, that's not it. Please tell them I am ready whenever they are. I'll see what I can do. He hung up without saying goodbye. I woke up early at 5:30 a.m. and was ready well before I needed to be. I got in my car thinking it was better to be early than rushed. On the way, my phone rang. It was Gus. I answered, hoping for good news. Good morning, Gus. 10 a.m. today. I'm sorry? The board will see you today at 10 a.m. Are you serious? I'm on my way to meet with Meredith. I don't think I can make it by 10. There was silence. Gus? I suggest you figure it out, Andrew. Before I could explain, he hung up. Great, I thought. I knew there was no way I could make the meeting. Seeing Meredith and hopefully getting our lives back on track was my main concern. I arrived a half hour early and the receptionist showed me to a small conference room and even brought me coffee. I couldn't stop checking my watch. I thought it had stopped working a few times. At last the door opened and in walked Mr. Edwards and my wife. She looked tired but still lovely. She wore a casual blue pantsuit. Her hair was up and she had a cast on her arm. Meredith, how are you? I've missed you. My sudden greeting caught her off guard. I saw Mr. Edwards whisper to her, and she slowly walked to the table and sat across from me. I ask that you don't speak with my client until we have had a chance to talk. Why? That doesn't make sense. What do you mean by your client? Mr. Carter, I'm here representing Meredith Carter. I can speak for her as her lawyer. We have important issues to discuss. Should I have a lawyer? I didn't realize this was a formal meeting. Do you have one? He could tell right away that I didn't. We can postpone until you get one. I know my client wants to resolve this quickly, but I recommend you consider this seriously. Deep down, I knew he was right. I needed someone to look out for my interests, but the need to stay with Meredith and maybe fix things clouded my thinking. No, I'm okay. So you're choosing not to have legal representation? I nodded. He pulled out a piece of paper and slid it across the table to me. You can see how careful the law is, so I will need you to sign this. It shows you agree to have no lawyer present for this meeting. I gave him a serious look. This protects both sides and makes our decisions today official. No one wants to feel misled. I tried to catch Meredith's eye, hoping to get a sign of what was about to happen, but she couldn't look at me. I heard a pen click and saw Blake extending it towards me. Just as I reached for it, he pulled it back. I'm sorry, Andrew. We need someone to witness this. He pressed a button on the conference room phone. Yes, Mr. Edwards? Hillary, could you please join us in conference room 4? Yes, sir. I'm on my way. While we waited, I glanced at my wife, trying to connect with her. She gave me a quick look before looking away again. My heart sank. I barely noticed the woman who entered the room as she took in what I was signing. I finally looked at the paper and signed it. Then the woman signed, and finally, Blake Edwards. "Can you please make a copy of this for Mr. Carter, Hillary?" She nodded and left the room. Blake took out 2 more folders from his bag and placed them on the table. He clasped his hands and looked at me. "You've had a rough few weeks, Mr. Carter." He opened one folder. "It seems you are being looked into at your office." I was about to respond, but he flipped open the other folder. "And you've faced another situation at Hornby's. This is dated the day we met there." I turned towards my wife. "Both are gross misunderstandings, Meredith. You know I would never." "I ask that you don't speak directly to my client unless she wants to," Blake interrupted. I stared at Meredith, hoping for her support, but then looked back at Blake. "Both are false claims," I insisted. "Yet you haven't sought legal help. You expect someone to save you?" He smiled, but I was about to reply when he raised his hand to stop me. "If that's all we need to discuss, we can move on. But we need to talk about the bigger issue regarding the incident at your home." He pulled out a 3rd folder and opened it. "Domestic issues causing distress. I can't hide the truth, Mr. Carter. You're in a difficult situation. You will face major challenges." "Meredith?" I turned to my wife, hoping she would help. "Mr. Carter, if you don't stop isolating my client, this meeting will end, and our next step will be a court date. Do you understand?" I didn't answer, but stopped looking at my wife. "The way I see it, Mr. Carter, there is one way to turn this around. My client has an offer she wants me to share with you. If you agree, we can put this behind us, and you can focus on fixing your marriage. I'll even help with these other claims at no cost." He had my attention, and he knew it. I could sense he found joy in my discomfort. For a moment, it felt like I saw something change in his eyes, but I shook it off. "Let me guess. It will cost me something important." I glared at him. He laughed loudly. "You are quite the dramatic one." He continued chuckling at my expense. I glanced at Meredith, but she stared at the table, blank-faced. His laughter stopped suddenly. "I don't think you realize your situation, Mr. Carter. These claims could drag your whole life into the courtroom. All this suffering and shame for what? Would you really endure all this and risk losing your family? It's just a misunderstanding. It's not about love." "I don't love Meredith, and I'm sure she doesn't love me either. For some reason, she has decided to love you. Are all you religious people this sensitive? Maybe you should ask your client." That comment caught Meredith's attention, but Blake quickly brought her back to the point. "Your wife believes in understanding, but she also knows you have to live your life, Andrew. Do you know why forgiveness matters? Because everyone makes mistakes. What's the big deal? If there's a way to move forward, take it. You can still grow old together." I think he believed he was winning me over. I could see it in his eyes, the same look he had when he thought he had a good chance in court. The room was quiet as I thought about what he said. And if I say no? His eyes dropped just a bit. Meredith said she wouldn't go on without my approval. What if I refuse? He sighed heavily. "It's simple. All these cases will continue, and you'll lose your job. You'll face consequences for these claims." He reached into his bag and pulled out a stack of papers, dropping them on the table. He pushed one toward me. The title was in big, bold letters, "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage." My heart sank. Here it was, right in front of me. I read through the papers and saw the list of requests from Meredith and her lawyer. It was long and heavily favored her. I saw things like wanting full custody of the kids and limited visits for me. She wanted all our savings, investments, retirement funds, and the house. It was an unfair list. It seemed I would be left with nothing. I noticed a tear drop onto the paper, realizing I was crying. "You want everything? You want me to just disappear?" I looked at Meredith, who was clearly upset too. "After all these years, do I mean that little to you?" She had heard enough and walked out the door. I could only watch her go. "Well, not everything. You can keep your car." I think he thought that was funny. After a moment of silence, he spoke again. "Andrew, are you really willing to throw away your marriage, your kids, your job, and your whole name, just to deny your wife a new relationship for a few years? Think about what you'd be giving up. Isn't being prideful wrong?" I took his pen and signed the papers. When I finished, I dropped the pen on the desk and left. He was so shocked he didn't know what to say, probably for the first time. Chapter 2. Present Day. I was sitting on a park bench when I finished thinking about my past. The events that led to my current situation happened quickly. I took out $1,000 from an ATM and drove to a cheap motel, where I drank the least expensive whiskey I could find. I kept going to the ATM until my card stopped working. I ended up with $3,900. I wanted to see my girls but was scared of upsetting them or getting into trouble. Soon I found myself living out of my car to save money. I showered at a truck stop until they figured out I was using their facilities without paying. I soon had little money for gas, so I parked in a back lot of an old service station, thinking no one would mind. I realized I was wrong when I came back one day and found my car gone. It was likely towed. The worst part was it took my last cash, my clothes, and my food. I quickly learned how to survive on the streets, where to find clothes and food. I humbled myself and started asking for spare change. I recognized some faces around me, but I wasn't worried they'd know who I was anymore. I looked different now. Just another person walking down the street. "Hey, Drew, missed you at the soup kitchen," said a familiar voice, bringing me back to the present. "Hey, Skippy, I was there but had to leave early. I ran into someone I wanted to avoid." Skippy was one of the few friends I had. He and Ham found me one night when I was close to giving up. It felt good to have them around. They took me to where they stayed, an old building full of people like us. It had metal trash cans with fires and warm blankets. They helped me get back on my feet. I was thankful for their help. Over time, they became like family, with Skippy and Ham being my closest friends. We looked out for each other. "It wasn't that tough moment with your ex again, was it?" Skippy asked. I laughed and shook my head. "Remember when you almost bumped into her outside that restaurant?" I smiled at the memory, even if it wasn't a pleasant one. Some places save their leftovers for people like us, even if they can't give them directly. One day, I found a loaf of bread and some chicken wings. When I stepped out from the alley, I spotted my daughters. They were a bit older now, but I knew who they were right away. I stood frozen, unsure of what to do. My first thought was to run, but my feet felt stuck. Meredith arrived soon after, and I watched from a distance. The girls looked so happy. My oldest seemed to sense someone was there and turned towards me. I knew she couldn't see me clearly, but she noticed the presence. Suddenly, Meredith walked a step in my direction. That snapped me out of my trance, and I dashed across the road and into another alley. I heard her call out, "Wait!" but I couldn't stop. "Why do you always bring that up, Skippy?" Ham gently nudged our friend. "Can't you see it bothers him?" "Sorry, Drew," Skippy said, looking regretful. "It's okay. It stings. I can still picture my girls." I tried to smile, but felt sad. "Hey, nice boots," Ham said in his usual quirky way. "Yeah, you need to be careful, Drew. Don't let anyone see them." That was good advice. While we looked out for one another in our community, it was just like the outside world. There were people who thought they deserved what you had and wouldn't think twice about taking it. "Thanks for the warning, Skippy." "You guys want to check the donation box behind the thrift store?" Ham asked. "We just came from there," he replied. "Okay, I'll take a quick look for myself. See you back at the spot." After some friendly pats on the shoulder, we went our separate ways. The donation boxes were great for finding clothes like pants and shirts. I needed a winter hat and some mittens. I had waited too long to get mine last year. By the time I arrived, it was getting dark. I carefully opened the security latch to get inside. Though the boxes were locked, they weren't secure enough to keep anyone out. As I searched through the clothes for what I needed, I suddenly felt a hand grab my leg and pull me out into the open. "Nice boots." It was Tony and two of his friends. "Get lost, Tony." "I just got these and they won't fit you." I pushed back until my back was against the box. "Like that matters. Give them to me." I tried to run, but one of his friends held me back. "Nobody disrespects me, especially not someone like you." Part of me wanted to laugh at the drama, but that feeling quickly faded when I felt a sharp pain in my stomach. I was falling to the ground, and his friends were gently lowering me. I vaguely remember them taking off my boots before I closed my eyes. With what I thought would be my last breath, I whispered, "Finally." Meredith's perspective. Today's service was tough. It felt like Father Murphy was speaking right to me. I knew my guilt was making me feel that way, but I usually kept it hidden. I waited for Jenny and Gina as they talked with their friends. Jenny was 16 and seemed much older, tall and graceful, while 14-year-old Gina was also growing into her own person. Another wave of guilt hit me as I thought about Jenny taking after her dad in height and build. "Good morning, Meredith. It's so nice to see you and the girls today." Father Murphy surprised me from my thoughts. "Oh, you scared me, Father." I smiled at the friendly old man. "My apologies, dear. I forget how quietly I move these days." We both smiled. "Meredith, I was wondering if I could speak with you privately for a moment," he said. We looked at the girls who were caught up in an animated chatter. "Sure, Father. Where should we go?" He gestured for me to follow, and we walked down a short hallway to a small office. Once inside, he motioned for me to take a seat as he removed his ceremonial robe. After hanging it up, he sat on the edge of his old desk. "Meredith, I hope I'm not being too forward. I'm aware of the challenges your family has faced." I felt uneasy. "Have you had any contact with Andrew over the years?" I was shocked. Father Murphy had always been kind to me and my girls, but we hadn't talked about Andrew in a long time. "No, Father, I haven't." "Why?" He chose his words carefully. "I saw him last week." "You saw him? Where?" My heart started racing. The last I heard, he had left town. At least that's what Blake said. The specific place doesn't matter, but we had a brief chat. I stared at him, my mind racing. It was a troubling talk. I never thought it was my place to ask you about it back then, but I can't shake the feeling that the story isn't finished. I waited for him to continue, but he left it open-ended to see how I would respond. It took me a moment to gather my thoughts. "I don't know what to say, Father. He must have been going through something really hard and felt he couldn't share it with anyone." I paused, my throat tightening. He was never a person who acted out until... I stopped, wanting to cry, but no tears came. Yes, I could sense that possibility. He looked at me, and I felt like he knew I was holding something back. "Well, I just wanted to let you know that I ran into him. I hope I didn't bring back any bad memories." I stood up, relieved the conversation was over. "I'll be okay, Father. It just needs time." "What's it been, Meredith? 5 years now?" "I'm not sure. That sounds about right. Well, I should go find my girls." He smiled as I walked past him. I got to the door and paused. "Father, could you tell me where you saw him?" He got up and sat behind his desk. "The soup kitchen on Market Street. I volunteer there a few times a week." "Oh, was he volunteering too?" I could hear my voice shake. "No, Meredith. No, he wasn't." His words hit me hard. I slowly walked out the door, using the wall for support, hoping he couldn't see how much I was struggling. "Oh, and Meredith, my door's always open if you need to talk." I made my way down the hall to the women's washroom. It was a small space that gave me the privacy I really needed. Before I could lock the door, the tears started. I didn't know what had happened to my husband since that day he signed the divorce papers. Blake said it was a strategy to force him to negotiate, maybe to boost his lawyer fees. It was meant to wear him down so he would agree to my request. My unfair, thoughtless request. I pulled toilet paper from the roll quickly to hold back my tears. Luckily, I didn't wear much makeup, but I still got swollen eyes when I cried. I grieved for the man I loved, feeling terrible for pushing him away from our daughters and into a tough spot. I had always felt guilty about what I put him through, but now it felt like I was a monster for my actions. Standing in front of the mirror, I tried to pull myself together as best as I could. I needed to get home. Pushing down my pain, I freshened up and hurried out of the church. My daughters were waiting for me at the bottom of the stairs outside. "There you are, Mom. We thought you left without us," Gina said with a smile. "Sorry, we talked too long with our friends, Mom," she added. My oldest was always trying to keep the peace, just like her dad. I turned and walked quickly toward the car. "Come on, girls. We need to get home." They fell in line behind me. Once at the car, Jenny hopped into the front seat, since Gina had taken the front on the way to church. As soon as I fastened my seatbelt and started the car, Jenny noticed I wasn't myself. "Mom, are you okay? Have you been crying?" I tried to smile. "I'm fine, honey. I just heard some bad news about a friend. I'll be okay." She gently touched my arm before letting it go. My excuse settled the matter for now. I headed straight to my room to change out of my nice dress and into my comfy clothes. I heard the girls call out as they went out the door. There was a football game that afternoon between two high school teams. I knew Jenny had a crush on a quarterback, and even though Gina was only 14, she was also interested in boys. Just thinking about how Andrew wasn't there to guide them through these teenage years filled me with guilt and tears again. I took a deep breath and decided to make the call I promised I wouldn't make again. Blake Edwards. His voice was smooth as always. Blake, it's Meredith, I said softly over the phone. Meredith, what a nice surprise. It's been a while. What's going on? Have you changed your mind? Even though there was distance between us, I had to stay calm. This isn't a friendly call, Blake. I need to hear something from you. Hear what? That I still think you're amazing? I could tell he was still full of himself. Did you really have private detectives looking for Andrew? For once, he was silent. We've talked about this, Meredith. I spent a good amount of money looking for him. I'm telling you, he probably started a new life. I even encouraged you to do the same. Yes, I remember. But your idea of a new life was to follow you around. You even suggested I let our girls live with my parents. So thoughtful of you. Okay, that wasn't my finest moment. I do have feelings for you, Meredith. He sighed. But I'm getting the feeling that's not why you called. Why are you doubting my search for Andrew? Still disrespecting him after all this time makes me wonder who truly has the fragile ego, Blake. He tried to respond, but I spoke over him. He's here. In town. Oh. Isn't that great? His voice lacked the confidence it once had. He's been living on the streets, Blake. My husband has been without a home for 4 years. His daughters think he left them. I can't take it anymore. Stay calm, Meredith. We talked about this before. I'm tired of all this. I didn't tell you to set him up with false charges. I didn't agree to push for a divorce. You've put a good man in this position. You might not have come up with these ideas, but you knew everything that was happening, Meredith. That makes you part of it, remember? You opened this door, and we both will face the consequences. Think about what your daughters will say when they find out you let this happen just so you could be with someone else. You took advantage of me. You used my tiredness and restlessness. You played me. I started to cry as my feelings poured out. Look, Meredith, I don't know. Maybe you can get him back. I believe he would prefer to fix things instead of living on the streets. Use your daughters to connect with him. I couldn't help but laugh at his silly ideas. You still don't understand? That man has more honor than you will ever have. He knows I was dishonest about the fall. He will never forgive me for the hurt I caused. He would rather live in hardship than come back to me. I sniffed. I pushed him away for what? Frustration filled me as our talk sank lower, and I hung up the phone. Nothing from that conversation made me feel better or change the harsh truth that Andrew was homeless. I couldn't shake the feeling that Blake hadn't really looked for him. Wanting some comfort, I went downstairs. It was still early, but I poured a big glass of wine and sat at the kitchen table, staring out at the yard my husband had created for us. I tried not to think about the memories that only brought me pain, but sadness washed over me. 5 years earlier, Meredith. Blake, what are you doing here? I lay in the hospital bed, having asked the office manager to inform work about my absence. You didn't think I'd check on my favorite assistant? I'm hurt, he said with a smile to make me laugh. He leaned closer, resting his hand on mine. What happened, Meredith? Guilt swept over me as I looked away from his charming smile. He saw our texts, and I tried to talk to Andrew tonight about our situation. It didn't go well. His eyes widened with concern. Did he hurt you? No, I quickly said. He was upset, but he didn't touch me. I tried to stop him, and we argued at the top of the stairs. When he turned away, I felt dizzy and tried to grab the handrail, but I lost my grip. The next thing I remember was Andrew calling 911 while he helped me. I could see he was taking it all in. Meredith, trauma can twist how we remember things. I shook my head. It was an accident, Blake. My anxiety made me feel faint. This was not Andrew's fault. Still, promise me you'll keep it vague for now, like you're trying to remember. Can you do that for me? I guess. But why? He leaned in with a bright smile. Just trust me, okay?" Like a fool, I agreed. I knew the hospital was trying to find out if my injuries were from domestic violence. The counselor didn't directly say it when she talked to Andrew and me, but when I was alone with her, she hinted at things I didn't mean to say, and I went along with it. I think I was trying to avoid admitting I was wrong. Saying that I had suggested a plan with someone else would not make me look good. After my parents picked me up, Blake quickly stepped in to offer advice. He said we could make this work in our favor. He thought that if he showed enough sympathy, he would agree to my idea. I wanted to back out, but he reassured me I could help him move on. We were not going to leave together. For the plan to work, I had to make my parents believe that Andrew might have pushed me down the stairs. Their reactions were intense. I worried my father would confront Andrew. I struggled to keep my story straight while trying to protect Andrew from their anger. If there was any chance to mend things, I needed them to accept Andrew back into our lives. I knew my daughters meant a lot to Andrew, and they loved their father. I had to keep them out of this situation, so I made my parents promise not to speak badly of Andrew in front of them. Soon my parents started asking questions, and I felt the urge to abandon the plan and seek forgiveness. Then Blake came by one night and talked about accusations against Andrew. "No way, Blake, Andrew wouldn't do something like that. This is all made up." He leaned back, thinking for a moment. "Well, sort of. What do you mean, sort of?" I asked a couple of young women to make false claims. One worked with him and the other is someone I had helped before. "You set him up? He could lose his job, Blake." "It won't go that far, Meredith. Just let me explain." That's when he laid out his entire plan. We would meet with Andrew, and Blake would act as his representative for free if he let us move forward. He promised that the accusations would disappear. They were made up. He also had divorce papers ready, which worried me. Again, he convinced me to trust his plan. Blake claimed that he would make the settlement very favorable for me, leaving Andrew with little. I began to feel that Blake's interest in me was more than professional. It was personal. I felt uneasy during the meeting with my husband. I couldn't even look him in the eyes. As Blake shared the information he had, even when Andrew tried to talk to me, I couldn't respond. Blake made a few comments about Andrew's beliefs, almost poking fun. I will admit that I didn't think about faith as much as Andrew did. We had different backgrounds, but his beliefs gave me strength. I knew I could rely on him to do right by me and the girls. When Andrew hesitated over the accusations, Blake presented the divorce papers. When Andrew asked if I ever cared for him, I couldn't take it. He sounded so hurt. I rushed to the washroom, barely making it in time to pull myself together. How did I let it get this far? I felt flattered and honestly curious about Blake's attention. He knew how to say the right things and engage me. Sometimes I wondered if I still mattered after being a homemaker for so long. Despite Andrew's efforts to make me feel happy, I often suspected he was just trying to keep me satisfied. I felt embarrassed by how much Blake made me think about our connection. After freshening up, I went to Blake's office, but he was already there. The look on his face was one I had never seen before. "Blake, what happened after I left?" He looked out the window, deep in thought. "What is it, Blake?" He turned back to me. I never saw this coming. It just doesn't make sense." "What doesn't make sense? What are you talking about?" He leaned back and sighed heavily. "Blake, what happened?" He sat up and placed the divorce papers in front of me. He signed and walked out. I felt weak, but there was a chair nearby. I was no longer feeling sick, but my head was spinning. I closed my eyes to process what I had just heard. "He signed." I heard Blake grunt in response. "Then tear it up, Blake. I don't want a divorce. Just get rid of it." "I can't. It's legally binding. Once my assistant got involved, I can't just throw it away." "So, what can we do? I need to talk to him. He needs to know this isn't what I want." "Look, Meredith, he's hurting now. Even though he seems strong, he's proud and stubborn. He'll understand things better in a few days and want to talk again. If he talks to a lawyer, there may be a way to change this. He loves his girls too much. He won't just walk away." We argued a lot that day, but I agreed to wait a few days. If he didn't reach out, I would talk to him myself. Blake didn't like that, but I was determined to fix my marriage. 2 days later, Andrew disappeared. The only signs of him were ATM withdrawals. We tried to stop them. hoping it would make him reach out. But it didn't. That day at the office was the last time I saw my husband. I thought about going to the police, but Blake warned that an investigation might not look good for us. I was hesitant, so I decided to listen to him. He suggested hiring private investigators, and I went along with that idea. For months, I struggled to explain to my girls why their father was gone. I told them partial truths to comfort them, but it was hard. My parents grew bitter, and no matter how many times I asked them not to blame Andrew, they wouldn't listen. They felt he had abandoned us. If only they knew the whole story. Once Blake told me Andrew had moved away, my feelings of guilt turned to anger. Why didn't he fight for me? Why would he just leave and start over? I didn't publicly disrespect him, but it became easier to cope with my guilt that way. Eventually, my divorce was finalized. The judge couldn't believe Andrew had agreed to such terms, but his leaving us all felt heavy. About 3 weeks later, Blake approached me. "So technically, you don't need his approval anymore." He smiled, and despite myself, I found it hard not to smile back. "You're quite persuasive," I replied. "Meredith, I had no idea he would react this way. He didn't seem like someone who would just walk away, but in doing so, he turned his back on his daughters and you. It's okay to make your own choices, Meredith. If you want to explore new relationships, you can do that freely, without guilt or shame." I held off for another 2 weeks, but eventually, I felt worn down. It was a Friday afternoon, and usually, all the partners had drinks together in the library. After a few cocktails, we walked to his office. We weren't in there for long before things took a quick turn. He seemed eager, and though I hadn't been with anyone else since my husband left over 19 years ago, I tried not to overthink it and just went along with the moment, but it felt empty. He led me to his desk, and we shared an awkward moment that didn't feel right. I kept thinking about Andrew. Andrew always knew how to make me feel cared for and connected, but now everything felt rushed and distant. And afterward, he lay on top of me, trying to catch his breath. I forced a polite smile and nodded, pushing aside the truth that it didn't feel meaningful to me. He wanted to continue, but I said no, explaining that I wasn't ready for more. My feelings weren't there yet. I worried he might take it the wrong way, but instead he laughed and joked about Andrew. I chose to let it go and started to get dressed. That was the only time anything happened between us. I told myself I needed time to think things over, but the real truth was simpler. I felt nothing. It hadn't been worth the build-up. I thought of Andrew, and for the first time in a while I felt less angry at him. I began to see how much I had hurt him. My choices had put him in a tough spot: false accusations, legal troubles, and a broken career. I had hurt someone who once cared for me. I went to counseling, but never fully opened up. I was scared of what I might learn about myself. So instead, I turned to prayer. I prayed for healing, forgiveness, and for my daughters. I silently wished the best for Andrew, hoping he found peace and happiness. As I looked out the window at a small maple tree Andrew had planted for our daughters, tears returned. A single leaf floated from its branch, blown by the wind. The image stayed with me. In that moment, something heavy settled in my chest. Maybe it was a sign, but it felt real. A thought I had buried deep inside came back. I had avoided it because I knew the truth could change everything, but it was time to face it. With trembling hands, I went back inside, opened the kitchen cupboard, and found the list of numbers we rarely used. My heart raced as I dialed one. "Hello?" A familiar voice answered, rough yet recognizable. I froze. "Hello?" she said again, louder. Hi. Betty?" "Got it in one. Who's calling?" "Betty, it's me. Meredith." Silence filled the line. "Meredith, huh? Is it the end of days or something?" she said with sarcasm. She was always so different from her brother. "So, what do I owe the pleasure, Meredith? Did my little brother die or something?" I think she was trying to be funny, but when I didn't answer right away, her tone shifted. "No, don't tell me my baby brother has passed, and I'm just finding out." No, Betty. Andrew's not dead." "Woo! That would have been an awkward reunion. How is my brother? It's not like you to call me, so something must be up. I haven't spoken to you since. I don't even remember." That was typical of Betty. It was always someone else's fault when they lost touch. I knew Andrew tried, but maybe less so since she showed little interest in her nieces. I don't remember our phone ringing off the hook either, Betty. I needed to get to the point quickly. Betty was always ready for a debate. Betty, your brother needs you. I paused. I need you. I bet that caught her off guard because her tone softened. I thought it was strange that I hadn't gotten a Christmas card in years. I figured he finally gave up on trying to reach me. That couldn't be further from the truth. Andrew never forced his beliefs on anyone, especially not his sister. All he ever wanted was for you to be part of his life. Our life. He knows how you feel about that. What mattered to him was finding a way for you to connect. She was quiet for a moment. So, what kind of help do you guys need? Money? I laughed lightly. She often thought there was always a hidden reason behind every call in the family. I struggled to find the right words. I realized I needed Betty's help, but it would be difficult for me. He's missing. Our talk was long and full of strong feelings. I didn't mention some things I had done, like trying to get back at him or making false claims that didn't go anywhere. I just told her that I had asked Andrew for help and that he had disappeared. I felt both hopeful and scared when she said she would catch the next flight here. 2 days later, my daughters and I were cleaning up after dinner when I heard a knock at the door. I had a good idea who it was, so I left the girls to finish and went to see. I took a moment to prepare for what was about to change in my life. "Nothing like what you put Andrew through," I whispered and opened the door. There stood a tall woman with mostly gray hair. She wore clothes that suited her height well. Even without makeup, you could see she was Andrew's sister. "Hey, Betty. Thanks for coming." I felt unsure whether to shake her hand or give her a hug, but she eased my mind by turning slightly. "This is my wife, Carol." A slender woman with dark hair stepped forward. She looked friendly and around my age. "I hope we're both welcome." "Of course. Please come in." Betty smiled and walked past me. Carol was very warm and welcoming. "It's so nice to meet you. Betty talks about her brother and his family a lot. I wanted to invite you to the wedding, but she said you may not agree with that." She looked a bit shy. "Sorry for bringing it up. It's great to meet you." I was surprised. I had no idea Betty was in a same-sex relationship, and I was pretty sure Andrew didn't know either. I followed them into the living room just as my daughters came out of the kitchen. I could tell by their expressions they didn't recognize the two women. "Girls, this is your Aunt Betty," I said, gesturing to her. "She's your dad's older sister." They stood still. "And this is her wife, Carol." The silence was heavy. Betty broke the tension first. "You must be Jenny." She reached out to shake my eldest daughter's hand. "And you must be Gina." She smiled kindly. "Your dad always said you were both beautiful. Honestly, I think he didn't give you enough credit. You're both stunning." Carol moved around and hugged both my daughters warmly. "I've heard so much about you. I can't believe I'm finally meeting you." I was grateful for Carol's friendly personality. "Why are you here now? Our dad left us. Why do you care about us?" Jenny asked. "Jenny, that's not a nice thing to say," I said, trying to steer her away from being rude. "That's okay, Meredith. I understand," Carol replied gently as she took a step closer to Jenny. "When I was your age, I had many disagreements with my parents, which separated us. Sadly, I ended up pushing your dad away too, thinking he was like them. I built walls around my heart without realizing it." Betty's voice became a little shaky. "I may not know my brother like I did before, but he was the best man I ever knew. What he did doesn't make sense, and your mom asked me to help her find him," she continued. "Well, I'm sure he's happy with his new family or something like that," Gina said flatly, pulling Jenny back toward the kitchen. "I'm going to be with them," Carol said, giving my shoulder a gentle pat before moving away. I watched her walk toward my daughters and turned to my sister-in-law. "She really is a breath of fresh air, isn't she?" I said, nodding toward Carol. Betty smiled and agreed. "I feel bad about the girls, Betty. It's been a tough few years," I admitted. "I don't blame them." "I should have been in their lives long before now," Betty replied, looking around the living room and noticing the decorations. "I don't see any pictures of Andrew," she mentioned. My heart sank. The girls said it was too hard to see his picture. They're all in my bedroom, I explained. She moved around the room looking at everything, from the curtains to the fireplace, until she stood close beside me. "So when can we stop pretending?" she asked, her tone startling me. "What do you mean?" "Just be honest, Meredith. I haven't seen my brother in over 20 years, but he was devoted to his family. Your story seems incomplete. I need you to tell me everything, or I'll find a way to get the truth out of you," she insisted. I knew her well enough to believe she meant it. I started to suggest finding a quieter place to talk when Carol came back into the room, hugging Betty. "Is it okay if the girls and I go out? I asked them to take me to the mall, and I promised to buy them ice cream. They're so sweet. You did such a great job with them, Meredith." "Of course, just avoid the shoe stores," Betty warned, raising her eyebrows. "Yes, I know. Bad Carol." She laughed and kissed Betty on the cheek. "Come on, girls, let's take our rental car. It has heated seats." Jenny and Gina followed her, stopping to hug me before they left. Carol held the door open for them and turned to me. "I thought you two might want some time alone. I'll keep them busy for a few hours." She waved and closed the door behind her. Without distractions, I asked Betty to sit down. I warned her that there would be parts of the story that might upset her. I understood if she needed to react strongly, and I just hoped she would let me finish. If I stopped, it might be hard to start again. Though hesitant, she eventually agreed, and after taking a deep breath, I began to share my role in the troubles surrounding her brother and my ex-husband. It took longer than I expected to tell the whole story. I cried several times during my confessions, noticing the pain on my sister-in-law's face. When I finally finished, I sank into the recliner, tears flowing, bracing myself for the reaction I anticipated. It didn't take long. "You're not a good person, Meredith," Betty exclaimed, jumping from the couch while I shrank back in my chair, wishing to disappear. "Do your daughters know what you've done? You led them to believe things about my brother to save yourself. Your friends and family think he was a terrible father?" I covered my face, but I could see Betty pacing the room. Suddenly, in a burst of anger, she grabbed my lamp and threw it at me, missing me by luck as it struck my arm and shattered on the floor instead. Her anger sparked something in me, and I shot up from my chair. "You think I don't know that? I hate myself even more every day. I was fooled into thinking it would all work out." By the time I realized my mistake, Andrew was gone. "So go ahead, do what you want. I deserve it." I dropped to my knees, but nothing happened after that. Neither of us spoke for a few minutes. Betty walked back and forth, and I sat on my heels. I tried to make things right, but Blake warned me that I could get in trouble just because of who I'm with. Was I supposed to leave my girls without parents? I begged him to find him, and he said he did. He promised he moved on and left town. "You think so little of my brother that you believed that? He stayed even when he wasn't wanted. He took on the weight of your choices and faced the results." Her words were surprisingly true. That was how Andrew was. He bore our struggles because that's what good people do. I imagined him out there dealing with my mistakes and... "Oh my God," I gasped. "What?" Betty glanced at me with a calmer look. "It couldn't be." Betty stared at me, unsure. I looked straight at her. "About a year ago, the girls and I were leaving a restaurant. They were chatting about the nice waiter when Jenny suddenly stared into the distance. I asked her what was wrong, and she said someone was watching us from across the street. I told her to ignore him since he seemed harmless, but she insisted he looked familiar. Eventually, I turned around and saw the man. He walked away quickly as soon as I turned. I felt something but pushed it aside. I sensed Jenny was right. He did look familiar in a way I should know him. I never thought it could be true, but tears started to fall. It was Betty's hug that pulled me back. She held me tightly, giving me comfort. I suddenly felt overwhelmed. I must have passed out because I woke up on the couch with a cool cloth on my forehead and Betty beside me. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Betty placed her hand on mine. "This isn't over, Meredith, but we need to focus on finding my brother." I nodded. "But know this. You will tell your girls the truth, or I will." I managed a small smile at her firmness, but I knew she meant it. We talked about what to do next and agreed to look around the restaurant, the soup kitchen in town, and even the hospital. As we cleaned the room, Carol and the girls entered. Jenny and Gina rushed to Betty and hugged her. No words were needed as I watched Betty embrace her nieces, tears in her eyes. With my own eyes wet, I glanced at Carol and mouthed, "Thank you." She smiled gently. What happened to the lamp? Nothing escaped Gina's notice. I tried to move it and it fell. It seemed like a good explanation, but Gina's face told me she didn't believe me, though she stayed quiet. The girls led their aunt into the kitchen and spent hours learning about her. She tried to talk about Andrew, but the girls quickly changed the subject to her. I could see the guilt in my own eyes. Overall, it was a nice evening, and I wished Andrew could see it. I knew it was what he wanted to bond with his sister and for his girls to know her. "So what's it like to be a lesbian?" my youngest Gina suddenly asked. We were all so shocked that no one spoke. Finally, Betty and Carol laughed. "Okay, girls, time for bed. School tomorrow. Let's go." It was the third day of our search for Andrew. Carol was with me, and as we drove around, I learned more about how she and Betty got together. They had to keep their life a secret because of fear, but eventually moved to Canada and never looked back. Carol's job as an anesthesiologist brought her to a big hospital in Nova Scotia. Over time, they felt comfortable in their new home and safe being themselves. We talked to a lot of people on the street, but they either ignored us or said they didn't know Andrew. I noticed how everyone looked out for each other. When strangers started asking questions, it was like everyone forgot everything they knew. I realized we were not that different from them. People often misunderstand these individuals. Out of everyone we spoke with, only one person appeared to have been drinking. It was clear that sadness and mental health struggles were common, making me think about how troubled our society is that so many face these issues. "We'll find him," Carol said, giving my shoulder a reassuring pat. Betty is determined when she has a lead. I appreciated her encouraging words. I was about to ask her something else about life in Canada when my phone rang. It was Betty, so I connected it to my car. "Hey, Betty, any news?" I asked. "Pacific General," she replied. I quickly pulled over. "What?" My heart raced. I had a lead at the soup kitchen. A guy named Skippy said he was hurt a few weeks ago and taken to Pacific General. He mentioned that's where they take homeless people. "Is he okay? What happened?" Carol jumped in. Skippy said he was attacked for his shoes. His friend found him and said he looked pretty bad. He was bleeding. I started to feel overwhelmed. "Are you sure it's your brother?" Carol asked, placing her hand on my arm for comfort. "He seemed to know a lot about Andrew's life, including his friends. He's very worried. His friend was trying to get more info from the hospital, but they don't share much with people like them." She paused. "Yeah, I think it's true. Meredith, are you okay?" "I think she's just feeling a lot right now. I'm going to drive. Can you send me the address? I'll enter it into the GPS." "Okay, see you there." "He'll be okay," I heard Betty sniffle at Carol's words. Next, I found myself being helped into the passenger seat while Carol entered the address into the GPS. "Hang on, Meredith. I might need to bend some rules." By the time we reached the hospital, I was feeling a little better. Carol found us a spot to park, and we hurried into the admitting room. Betty was already at the counter. "He's about my height, brown hair." Betty started. I cut in. "He had some gray on the sides." If he hadn't shaved, he would have had a patchy beard. Andrew could never grow a full beard. "We heard he was brought in a couple of weeks ago with a serious injury," Betty added. The nurse looked through some reports. She pulled one out and examined it closely. The name said John Doe, and I felt my heart drop. "Let me check with our doctor," she said, taking the file away. We waited in silence for what felt like forever until she returned with an older doctor. "Are you looking for a family member?" he asked. Betty replied quickly, "Yes, my brother. I found out he was living on the streets, and today someone at the soup kitchen said he was in bad shape and brought here. We do have a John Doe who came in about 10 days ago. He was in very serious condition when he arrived. He's still on our critical list. Many of these individuals are in such poor health that recovery is quite difficult." "Can I see him?" I blurted out. The doctor looked at me, asking, "And you are?" "I'm his wife, ex-wife. It's complicated." He gave me a questioning look. "He's stable now, but any stress might not be good for him." "Please," Betty said gently. even if it's just to confirm it's him. He nodded slightly and motioned for her to follow him. Carol led me to the waiting room where we sat. I tried to stay calm, but after 5 minutes I felt hopeful. After 15, my nerves grew. Carol held my hand tightly to keep me from fidgeting. Just when I was about to move, Betty returned, tears in her eyes. We rushed over to her, and Carol gave her a warm hug. "Betty? Is it him?" Betty nodded, tears streaming down her face. Is he okay?" I felt a knot in my stomach as she cried harder. I wanted to ask so many things, but I knew she needed a moment. Carol helped her to a chair, and the three of us sat quietly until Betty could speak again. "I'm sorry. I didn't expect this," she said, wiping her eyes. "Is he okay, Betty?" I asked gently. "He's critical, but stable. The nurses think he's getting better. There were some complications, but he's responding." "Well, that's good to hear," Carol said softly. Betty shook her head. He looked so different. Not like the Andrew I knew. Just a shell of himself. If he hadn't been breathing, I might have thought... Her voice broke again, and she turned to Carol, crying on her shoulder. I stayed silent, tears flowing down my cheeks. The guilt felt heavy on me. Carol must have noticed, as she moved to sit between us and wrapped her arms around both of us. "Excuse me," a nurse said kindly. "Dr. Orentz asked if you could come back tomorrow. He has some medical questions only a family member might be able to answer." "We can talk now," I offered. "I understand, but the doctor has worked a long shift. He says it can wait." The nurse smiled kindly. "Can one of us stay with him?" Carol asked. The nurse paused. "I'm sorry, we can't have overnight visitors. You can stay in the waiting room, but honestly, I think everyone would benefit from a good night's rest." She walked away, leaving us to decide what to do. After discussing it, Carol convinced us that going home and coming back tomorrow was the best option. Andrew was safe, and that gave us a little peace. As we left, a man standing by the door tried to come in, but it was locked. He looked upset. "Sir? Are you hurt? Do you need help?" Betty asked. The man turned and started walking away slowly. "Are you looking for someone?" "I don't want any trouble," he replied softly. Betty stepped closer. "You wouldn't happen to be Ham, would you?" He looked up a bit at the name. "Yes. Ham?" "I'm Betty. I met your friend Skippy at the Market Street soup kitchen. He told me about Andrew." The man relaxed a bit at this. "Andrew, he's my brother." He seemed relieved, and when his guard went down, Betty stepped in for a hug. He looked surprised and didn't know how to react. She whispered, "Thank you for saving my brother. I know it was you and Skippy that found him." Ham returned the hug after a moment. We all came closer, and once Betty let him go, she turned to introduce us to Andrew's hero. "This is Ham. When I found Skippy at the soup kitchen, he told me how the three of them have been like family for 3 years. They found Andrew after he was hurt, and it's because of them that Andrew has a chance." We all thanked him sincerely. He looked a bit shy about it, but accepted our gratitude. "Is he going to be okay? They won't tell me anything." Ham replied, "He's still critical, but stable. He had some issues, but they seem hopeful." Betty smiled and placed her hand on his shoulder. "Hi, I'm Carol." Carol reached out her hand, and he shook it. "I'm Betty's wife." This made Ham smile softly. I then introduced myself. "I'm Meredith," I said, offering my hand. As soon as I said my name, he quickly pulled away. I could see the tension in his eyes. Before I could say anything more, he walked away, thanking Betty for the information. I realized I had made a mistake. I knew I had hurt Andrew as well, but the weight of everything started to hit me hard. I walked to my car, knowing that tomorrow I had to tell my daughters the truth about their dad. Chapter 4. Andrew's View. I woke up to the sound of beeping. I could hear voices from the speakers above me. At first, I didn't understand where I was, but it didn't take long to realize I was in a hospital. My head was raised a bit, so I could see my room. It wasn't just my room, though. There were 5 other beds filled with people like me. "Mr. Carter, welcome back," a woman said, catching my attention. No one had called me by my last name in years, let alone Mr. "You're looking much better today. Dr. Orentz will come to see you soon." She smiled at me. I tried to speak, but my throat was too dry and it hurt. She gave me a cup of ice chips, and I chewed on them slowly while she waited. "How do you know my name?" I managed to ask. "A lot has happened this past week, but the doctor will explain." I didn't know what to say, so I tried to smile back at her. 10 minutes later, an older man walked in, wearing a long white coat. This must be the doctor, I thought. He checked the charts of the other beds before coming to my side. "You surprised us for a while, Mr. Carter, but I think you are doing better now." I wanted to say something, but he kept talking. "A couple of your friends brought you in just over 3 weeks ago. You had some injuries in your abdomen, and you had lost a lot of blood. The surgery went well, but you weren't improving as quickly as we hoped. We found a small problem in your intestine, and we had to do an emergency procedure. After we fixed that, you were in recovery for quite some time. Then your sister came by." I must have looked surprised because he smiled and patted my shoulder, reassuring me. "She said you'd be shocked. She's been here every day for the last week, visiting and talking to you. 2 days ago, you had some special visitors, and it looked like you wanted to get better after that because your condition improved a lot since then. I don't want to say miracle, but it felt pretty close." He adjusted the IV and wrote on my chart. "Your sister has insisted on coming in to see you, and I can't argue with the positive change I've seen. How do you feel about seeing her? Would that be okay?" It was all overwhelming. My sister, who hadn't spoken to me in almost 20 years, found me and had been visiting. Who were the special visitors? I felt a wave of emotions that I usually kept hidden. What started as anxiety turned into a glimmer of hope. I looked up at the doctor and nodded in agreement. His smile widened. "Great, I'll go get her. But remember, it will be a short visit. You need your rest." I felt nervous. I hadn't seen my sister in so long, and I wondered how our meeting would go. Why had she reached out now? How? So many questions raced through my mind. I would find out soon enough. I looked up as someone walked slowly through the door. Even after 20 years, she looked just like I remembered, a bit heavier and grayer, but still elegant. She approached my bed, watching my reaction. I could see she had been crying recently, and tears started forming in her eyes again. I frowned slightly, and it seemed to stop her in her tracks. "Why are you crying, Betty?" I raised my hand from my bed, wanting her to take it. Instead, she hugged me tightly, her tears soaking my pillow. "I'm so sorry, Andrew. I was really stubborn. I missed you a lot." Now it was my turn to feel emotional. I think this was the first time since I signed those divorce papers. We stayed that way for a while, not saying anything. I gently rubbed her back. I could feel her catching her breath from crying. Eventually, she pulled back enough for me to see her face. I wiped the tears off her cheeks. "I missed you too, Betty." She smiled softly. "What are you doing here? How did you find me?" She stood up, pulled a chair beside my bed, and seemed to organize her thoughts. In classic Betty style, she had to make a comment first. "You look terrible, Andrew. You could have cleaned up for me." We both laughed, but it hurt my stomach, so I quickly stopped, and she looked sorry for making me uncomfortable. "It's a long story, Andrew. It will take days to tell completely. But I can give you a quick version for now, if that's okay. I will be here as long as you need me. All right?" I expected a strange tale and wasn't disappointed. I felt so many emotions, including anger and sadness. While remembering this was just a short summary, what would the full story do to me? She noticed I was shutting down when she mentioned Meredith, but my sister was never one to hold back the truth. The doctor came in and suggested we wrap up our visit, so Betty tried to share as much as possible. "This is a lot to take in, Andrew." She stood and held my hand. "As for Meredith, I won't push my feelings onto you. I believe she's sorry." She let that thought linger. "The girls are with your in-laws right now." She saw my reaction. "Yeah, she told them everything, including her parents. She's not popular with her family, as you can imagine. The guilt everyone feels is overwhelming. The only one who doesn't feel guilty is Carol." I frowned at the name. "Who's Carol?" My voice was still quite rough. She looked at the ceiling and sighed. Then our eyes met. "Carol is my wife." I was surprised. I had no idea she was gay. Was that why she kept her life separate from me? Did she think I would judge her? I squeezed her hand as best as I could. "I can't wait to meet her," I replied, feeling a bit uneasy. Her eyes lit up and she leaned over, gently touching my forehead. "I'll be back soon, okay?" I smiled as I watched her leave the room. She turned one last time and waved at me. I closed my eyes, taking everything in, but I was too tired to think much. Before I knew it, I fell asleep again. I woke up to the sound of a nurse helping another patient. He sounded upset, but she spoke firmly, telling him to listen to her. I tried to see who it was. I didn't know everyone, but I recognized some faces. New ones always made me anxious. Once the nurse finished talking, she saw I was awake and came over. "How are you feeling today, Mr. Carter?" "A little better." My throat wasn't as sore and my voice was clearer. She checked my temperature and pressed some buttons on the monitor, making it beep. "These numbers look much better." She smiled at the display. "Are you hungry?" I hadn't thought about eating, but now I felt really hungry. "I could eat," I said with a smile. "Well, it won't be steak or chicken, but we have some great Jell-O flavors. I'll see if the doctor will let you have some soup." "Maybe," I said playfully, and she laughed. "Let me see what I can find for you." As I finished my third bowl of Jell-O, the nurse came back. "All done?" she asked, smiling. When I didn't respond, her tone softened. "I didn't get the best stuff, but I do have something to make you feel better." "Like pretend ice cream?" I joked. She chuckled and took my tray away. Before leaving, she turned back and said, "Enjoy your time." I was confused by her words as she walked out. Just then, two other people came in slowly. I squinted to see who they were. When I noticed how young they looked, my heart jumped. I started to cry. Jenny rushed to one side of my bed while Gina ran to the other. They both hugged me tightly. I had dreamed of this moment so many times, but I thought it would never happen. And yet here they were. For a long time, we didn't say anything. Gina climbed onto the bed beside me, and Jenny quickly joined her. It felt crowded, uncomfortable, and wonderful all at once. I heard the nurse come in, and she seemed about to say something to the girls, but she quietly left without saying a word. "Daddy, we're so sorry," Jenny cried into my neck. I patted their heads, trying to comfort them. I knew they felt bad, but I wanted to focus on being together. Eventually, we found it easier to talk. Everything felt careful and tense. Being apart for 5 years was hard enough without the problems that came with it. The girls explained what happened when Meredith told the whole story. Jenny confessed to hitting her mother with an umbrella because it was the first thing she grabbed. They both started going to counseling, encouraged by Carol and my sister. Even though I was upset with Meredith, I wanted the girls to keep some love for her in their hearts since she was their mother. Though she wasn't a good partner, she had always cared for them. Gina argued that a good mom wouldn't have kept them away from their dad. I didn't disagree with her. We cried a lot more, and saying goodbye was even harder this time, knowing they would be back in my life. As I wiped my tears, I closed my eyes and thanked God for bringing my kids back. I was grateful for my sister and Carol and prayed for everyone who was affected by what happened years ago. A part of me wanted to be angry with Meredith, my boss, and even the church, but after living simply for 4.5 years, that anger faded. I knew returning to the world outside would be difficult, but if I had faith in Christ, I could make it. 3 months later, just as she promised, Betty stayed for another 3 months to help me rebuild my life. She played a big role in getting a good lawyer for me. I later found out that Carol helped financially to get everything moving. With Meredith living with her parents, I returned to our house, which was technically Meredith's now, and decided to sleep on the couch. I argued several times with my sister and the girls about using their rooms, but they didn't understand how cozy a couch could be after so many years. I didn't want to put them out. Once our legal actions began, we filed 3 separate lawsuits. The first was against Mr. Blake Edwards. My lawyer had a long list of charges against him that could endanger his job and finances. The lawsuit also included the firm that hired him during the time he worked there. Terms like due diligence, reasonable grounds, breach of ethics, and conflict of interest were mentioned in the charges. I couldn't fully understand everything, but Betty and Carol were there to help me through it. I had forgotten how strong Betty could be when she believed in something. The second lawsuit was against my old job. They had no idea it would come back to bother them, but I had plenty of evidence, both online and on paper, showing how they pushed me out of my position. They were aware that the information they had was not verified, but they wanted to act quickly. I've been told they are eager to settle the case outside of court. The third lawsuit felt more personal to me. After dealing with a dishonest partner and a tricky lawyer, we sought what was owed to us, including the house, savings, and income from investments. Thankfully, my partner admitted wrongdoing, which is why I didn't seek personal damages or fraud charges. In the past, I might have pursued those, but I had become more thoughtful during my time away. Before everything changed, Meredith was a caring mother. I wanted the girls to have the opportunity to reconnect with her when they felt ready. Personally, my days went up and down. I was grateful to be alive and rebuilding my life, but on some days, the weight of my experiences felt heavy. I often felt frustrated when my counselor encouraged me to share my feelings. The shift between gratitude and frustration wore me out almost every day. They say time heals all wounds. I guess I'll have to wait and see. At my counselor's request and my girls' and sisters' wishes, I haven't been in touch with Meredith. She has been part of some of the legal matters, but I haven't spoken to or seen her since that last day in the office. I know there will be a time when we have to be in the same place again, and I hope I can handle that calmly. It's been 20 months since I left the hospital, and a lot has changed. Legally, just one part of my lawsuits is still open. Without going into too much detail, I can share that Blake Edwards is no longer a lawyer. The stress of the situation affected him deeply, leading him to seek help through troubling means. Last I heard, he was facing serious financial issues and was close to being bankrupt. Losing his license to practice law didn't help his situation either. My past employer was the first to settle. Along with a good sum of money, I received formal apologies and a positive recommendation, should I ever need it. Mark, my former boss, was let go over a year ago. I'm not sure what he's doing now, and I don't think about it much. He did call a few months ago, leaving a message with an apology and hoping I would return his call. I might do that eventually. On a personal note, my financial matters were settled. The house was sold, and I got 60% of its worth. My retirement fund was once again in my name, and even though we only wanted 50% of our investments and savings, Meredith offered 65%. I was told to accept the offer without question. Financially, I was doing well, especially after downsizing. The girls love my cozy 3-bedroom bungalow. Meredith, who still lives with her parents, lost her job but found a new position a few months later. Her new job came with a long and tough probationary period, but she handled it well. What started as an act of kindness turned into a small business venture for her. I looked for Skippy and Ham about 6 months after everything changed, only to learn that Skippy had died from an accidental overdose. I was heartbroken. Ham and I had tried hard to keep him away from drugs when we were together. Deep down, I believed what happened to me may have led him back to using again. I missed my friend more than words can say. With my understanding of the streets and how businesses work, I sought ways to improve our local systems. I noticed a big gap between state funding, churches, and donations. Now, I manage all the local soup kitchens, making sure they have what they need. Even though I don't attend my old church anymore, Father Murphy has helped me reach out to church leaders to get them more involved with people in need. Sometimes, folks just need someone to listen without judgment. More counselors have started volunteering their time to help with the sadness and hopelessness people face when they hit rock bottom. It's a start. It's true what they say. You can't help everyone, but helping even one feels amazing. Take Ham, for example. I asked for his help at first, and soon he got a part-time job with a delivery company. Next week, I'm helping him move into a housing project for lower-income residents. Ham has always been a good man, and now he's learning to believe that about himself again. He is just one of many positive stories, and I hope to see more like him in the future. Today was special. I had marked it on my calendar for 2 months. Both my therapist and Meredith's felt we needed some closure to truly move on. To do this, we set up a meeting. Neither of us knew what to expect, so we chose a private place. The only spot we agreed on was her parents' house. Bert and Gail were kind enough to give us an afternoon to talk alone. When she opened the door, I was hit with a wave of emotions. I tried to get ready, but how do you prepare for something like this? I cared about her a lot, but I also felt frustrated. As I stood there, I noticed how much she had changed. Meredith had always been beautiful, but the past had clearly affected her too. Her hair had more gray, and she had gained some weight, but it didn't lessen her charm. If we had spent all this time together, I might not have noticed. But after 6 years apart, it felt different. Her eyes, once bright, looked more tired, even with makeup trying to hide it. We stood there awkwardly, unsure how to continue, so I walked into the living room. She had tea and muffins ready on the coffee table. I sat in a chair, avoiding the awkwardness of sitting next to her. When she joined me, she offered to pour tea. I remembered how many times we had shared tea before. When she went to add milk, I had to stop her. "No milk, please." She looked at me, surprised. She knew I usually liked milk in my tea. It wasn't always available at the soup kitchen, so I got used to having it plain. I noticed the sadness in her eyes at my words. She handed me my cup and held hers tightly in her hands. "Thank you for meeting with me, Andrew. I've wanted to do this for a long time, but I understand you needed time to—" Her voice faded out. "I'm not sure what we should talk about, Meredith. It's all in the past now, and there's no way to change it." Even though it had been over 6 years since I last saw her, I could still tell when she felt hurt. Normally, I would have said sorry, but this time, I couldn't bring myself to. "The girls tell me you have a new business now. What about the soup kitchens?" I nodded. Maybe I was being harsh, but I didn't think she would get it. "They really liked helping you. They always talk about the people they meet and how good it feels to help others." I smiled. My girls had jumped into my little project all on their own. Maybe it was their way of trying to understand what I went through. Whatever the reason, I was very proud of them. It's nice to spend time with them. I took a sip of my tea. After a moment of silence, she found the strength to speak. "Andrew, I'm truly sorry. She paused, filled with emotion. "I still can't believe all of this is happening." I felt calm when I arrived today. Maybe a little nervous, but mostly calm. That changed with her words. "What can't you believe, Meredith? That you wanted to step outside our marriage? That you expected me to accept that? Or is it that you painted me as someone I'm not during all this?" "I had nothing to do with those girls, Andrew. That was all Blake's doing," she insisted. "I see. And when you realized how misleading it was, did you defend me?" "I must have missed that," I replied sharply. "When you left, I had no idea you signed everything Blake put in that document. It was supposed to be a starting point to get you to talk to me." "Are you still confused, Meredith? I tried to reach out to you many times, but you didn't respond. You even let him limit my contact with you. You didn't want to talk. You wanted to push me into accepting your choices." I kept my voice steady at first, but all the past feelings made the atmosphere tense with every word. I leaned back in my chair, trying to calm myself. Meredith was now crying. With more control, I continued. "That divorce document was basically saying this would happen unless you let him have his way. It was clear you didn't love or respect me anymore. I gave you the space to make your choices." She took a shaky breath. "I hope this was worth it for you, Meredith. I guess you thought it would make you happy, right?" "No!" she shouted back at me. "It was nothing. There was no real love or care. It was just empty." "Is that supposed to comfort me? To know your choices were empty? That you gave up everything for something meaningless? Newsflash, Meredith, it doesn't." I fell silent, waiting for her to collect herself. The longer I waited, the more I questioned why this was supposed to happen. Right now, I felt lost. Her hands shook as she set her cup down. "Why? Why did you leave? Why didn't you fight for us?" Her eyes were locked on mine. "Fight? Fight for what? To have the accusations drop so I could be ignored?" She opened her mouth to speak, but I continued. "Don't even try to say it was just a choice. You wanted everything without caring for me. I was at your mercy and you showed me none. Do you remember what you did when I asked if I meant anything to you? You just walked away." I sighed, feeling heavy with the memory. That's when I knew there was no chance for us, Meredith. What was I supposed to fight for? I slumped back in my chair. "You made it clear that our daughters would face the results of the choices made, so I stepped back from their lives for their own good." She slid off the couch and knelt in front of me. "That was all Blake's ideas. I didn't find out until later. He said everything would be okay. I never supported what he did or how he did it. I trusted him too easily. He knew how much I loved you. I shook my head and she took my hands. I made him search for you because I needed to talk. I wanted to tell you that I've changed my mind. What I thought was important isn't anymore. She gently touched my hand. He said you had moved away. He said you were likely starting a new life somewhere else. After a while, I started to believe him. And then I got angry with you. That's when she left the rest unsaid. I couldn't help but wipe the tears from her face. You really thought that the man who worked so hard to deceive would look for me. With me gone, he had everything he wanted. I could see she understood. Her head fell to my lap, and I instinctively began to stroke her hair, trying to comfort her. I was tired of feeling angry. Maybe this was a good moment. Now that I had shared what weighed on my mind for so long, I felt a sense of relief. Where do we go from here? She whispered from my lap. We? I started. There is no we, Meredith. It's time for me to move on. I suggested she do the same. Saying this made me feel emotional. I knew it was over, but it felt different saying it to her. She raised her head and looked deep into my eyes. Is there no chance, Andrew? She held onto my hand as I tried to pull it away. I know what I've done, and I've taken responsibility for it. My daughters think I'm terrible. My parents barely want me around. I've lost everything, Andrew, everything. Please, can't you forgive me? Can't you see how sorry I am? I will spend my life making it up to you. Honestly, I didn't expect that. For many reasons, I never thought she would ask for our relationship back. I stood up, bringing her up with me until we were face to face. I guided her to the couch so we could sit next to each other. I can see you feel genuine remorse, Meredith. I can see that you are truly sorry. I noticed hope in her eyes. I know you confessed to our daughters and your parents. That was a big step for you. I paused. But the hurt has already happened. You chose an idea over our marriage. I watched her hope fade. But Andrew, I love you. Meredith, I don't love you anymore. I haven't for years. This dream you have of going back to what we had isn't real. You need to understand that. I took her hand. Right now, I'm working on forgiveness. Every day, I pray for strength to let go of my anger towards you, to forgive you for the choices you made. You're wrong. It wasn't easy. I struggled and cried daily. I fought and yelled. She touched my cheek. I would do anything to take it all back. Anything but your effort. I moved her hand away from my face. You claim you didn't like what was happening to me, yet you didn't do anything to stop it. The changes you made are years too late. They only came when your guilt pushed you to a breaking point. I knew she didn't see things like I did. You know what it takes, Meredith? Her eyes locked onto mine. It's simple. Just be a good person. Be good to your friends. Be good to your husband. Be a good role model for your daughters. That's all it takes. If you can do that, everything else falls into place. Love, respect, honor, loyalty, all the important parts of a marriage. I stood and released her hand. Once I believed we had that, Meredith. Now I see it was never balanced. Meredith cried softly, showing her emotions. Watching her pain brought me no happiness, no joy, not even a sense of closure. I felt only sadness. I walked slowly to the door, ready to leave, but I paused and turned back for a moment. If it helps, Meredith, there was something good that came from this. I realized I was in a job where I didn't feel valued. I learned a lot about myself during those years, more than I would have if I had stayed the same. For the first time, I feel I can truly make a difference in the world, and I want to embrace that and be thankful. Epilogue. Did you ever think we would dance together again? Meredith smiled at me as we moved gently across the floor. I can't say I did. I saw Gina dancing with her new husband, and Meredith noticed too. We both smiled at the happy sight. Do you think they'll last? She asked softly. Isn't that what love and belief are for? Nothing just happens, Mir. It takes effort. She nodded and glanced at the table to our right. She seems like a great match for you, Andrew. She was talking about my date, a woman I had been with for 16 months. She held back a giggle. I really wanted to dislike her, but I can't. She seems lovely. Her smile was real. I get what you mean. I smiled back. I felt the same way when I met your Tom, but I like him too. We quietly finished the parents' dance and returned to our tables. I had finally forgiven Meredith, and we had both moved on. It wasn't easy, but we both grew stronger over time. I could have chosen to hold on to anger, which would have been the easy way out. No one would have judged me for that. I looked at my sister and Carol, watching them laugh with Jenny and her new boyfriend. I smiled at the scene I had missed for so long. Even with our joyful reunion, it took Betty and me several years to truly work through our differences. Much of her hurt towards me came from my relationship with our parents. While I understood how hard things were for her, I couldn't forget the good they brought into my life. If only we had talked about this sooner. Betty was strong-willed, and I had been too laid back. After Mom and Dad passed, I should have reached out to her. Maybe we could have saved some time. Carol quickly became one of my favorite people. She helped keep us all connected. Keeping Betty steady was a full-time job, and she was excellent at it. Life taught me so much. Skippy, Ham, and the kind older woman at the soup kitchen all played a part in my journey. All I know is my girls are happy now, and their bond with their mom is growing stronger every day. She wasn't a perfect partner, but she was a wonderful mother. Was this part of a bigger plan? I honestly don't know, but I plan to find out when my time comes.